Don't have a clue what to make of all of this. Please, someone explain what happened yesterday in a way that I can understand. I continued helping myself to the food in the mansion's kitchen. The massive commercial refrigerator had everything. I could eat and drink as much as I liked. I'd have more than enough to eat even if the typhoon didn't clear up for a week. With a bottle in one hand, which half of which I'd already drunk, I helped myself to some sliced ham. I wonder just how expensive this stuff is. Man, you ingredients are out of luck. If only you had Goda-san cook you, you could have been reborn as much more incredible food. I look at the clock. Very soon it will be midnight. October 5th, the second day, would end. The insanity of yesterday's October 4th didn't seem real. That was how little had happened after my so-called tests. Nothing was happening. No phone calls, no letters. No one coming to see me, no one coming to attack me. Not a goddamn thing. Give me back all the time and energy I wasted being on edge. An entire day of full 24 hours, and absolutely nothing happened. And I'm sure that nothing will continue to happen as well. A full 24 hours ago, I was called to the front of the mansion by Beatrice. There I was given some kind of weird test to do with determining the successor to the head or something. I gave a serious answer in my own way, but unfortunately we just didn't seem to be getting at each other. Beatrice got bent out of shape for no reason and stopped talking to me. I yelled at her to say something, but she wouldn't say a word. Then I asked where Maria was, and she told me to go to the chapel and went away. What an astounding anticlimax. Stupid as it was still a test, so at least tell me whether I've passed or failed, for hell's sake. What is she trying to say? Good work, your results will be mailed to you later or something? Annoying bitch. In any case, I then headed to the chapel. Both George, Aniki and Jessica had been killed after failing their tests. I couldn't let Maria be killed too. Besides, I thought this could be a chance to catch whoever it was while they were in the process of trying to kill Maria. When I was young, Jessica often told me that I'd get in trouble if I went near the chapel, so I'd never been there, but at least I knew where it was. I couldn't sense anyone there, but there was a bundle of keys lying in front of the door. I thought this might be a message to open the door to the chapel, but after trying all of the keys, I found that none of them fit. I also called Maria's name, but there was no answer whatsoever. I searched around the chapel, but there was a limit to what I could do in the pitch black with just a flashlight. I realized that this bundle of keys might be a set of master keys, which could possibly open the door to the mansion. Finding no sign of Maria, I returned to the mansion. The mansion was wrapped in silence and in a horrible stench. Still, it's pretty amazing how good humans are at adapting. Technically, the smell was still pervading the entire mansion, but I've grown completely used to it and stopped minding it by this point. It didn't feel like anything more than any old house where someone had burned some meat. The stench knocked me back on first entering, but I ignored it and decided to head to the dining hall, where I found all those corpses that were in such a sorry state that Goda-san and Kumasawa-san had hesitated to speak of them in any detail. E infatti adesso, eccoli qua, aggiorniamo. Allora, Genji, Rosa, non Kiri e Rudolph, Hideyoshi, Eva, Natsui. Vediamo cosa dice. Corpse discovered in the dining hall. Her head was half destroyed. It seems reasonable to think that she was murdered with something like a powerful gun. However, the witnesses don't believe that she was killed with a gun. Stessa cosa per tutti gli altri. Sì, la differenza è solo his, her. Tutti uguali. Ok. They were the remains of the very first victims, Aunt Natsui and the rest. Each of them had half of their head dramatically splattered out. And it was such a gruesome sight that that even without knowing a thing about examining corpses, I could pronounce them 100% dead. On top of that, the remaining half of their faces were left like normal, so it was even easy to identify them. They'd really pulled out all of the stops for these corpses. And finally, the bodies here weren't just the 6 of the first twilight, they had grown in number and now included one more. The 7th corpse was Maria. She was lying next to Aunt Rosa as though sleeping alongside her. I cried at the death of an innocent young girl, and at the cruel way my dad and the others had died. I ran about the mansion swinging my hat-stand spear, yelling, "Come out here, you bastard!" But there was absolutely no sign of anyone else. Aggiorniamo anche Maria. Corpse discovered in the dining hall, unable to locate any notable external wounds. Butler speculated that it may have been some type of poisoning, the most peaceful method of inviting a person to the Golden Land. Thinking that they might be hiding somewhere and scheming to attack me from behind, I went around searching for possible hiding places, sometimes being cautious, sometimes intentionally letting my guard down, trying all kinds of things, but in the end, not so much as a kitten appeared. Then morning came. My tension and fatigue mixed together with my drowsiness made for the worst kind of dawn. Humans are pretty incredible. Even though I didn't know where the hell the murderer was hiding, I was prioritizing drowsiness and fatigue over worrying for my own life. By this time, I was starting to feel pretty ridiculous. I had walked around the mansion for a full 6 hours until dawn broke, yelling at them to show themselves. Oh, salve Luke! Benvenuto, recapino velocissimo. Dopo che Butler ha avuto la discussione con Beatrice che abbiamo visto alla fine nello scorso episodio, ha provato a chiamarla, non rispondeva niente, lui era chiuso fuori dal mansion, ha chiesto semplicemente dove fosse Maria. Beatrice ha detto che stava nella chapel, nella cappella, e Butler è andato alla cappella, ha trovato tutto quanto chiuso, ma ha trovato delle master keys davanti all'entrata della cappella. Quindi ha preso le chiavi, è entrato dentro nel mansion e ha trovato i corpi dei 6 della prima notte nella dining room, insieme anche al cadavere di Maria, che a quanto pare sembrerebbe essere stata avvelenata. E adesso ha girato per 6 ore nel mansion fino a mattina praticamente. Sì, eccoci qua. I had done a painstaking search, tired myself out, and never let my guard down. Still, no one was coming to attack me. And so at that point I just said, screw it, do whatever you want. The boat wouldn't come until the typhoon passed. They were saying on TV that it wouldn't pass until tomorrow, so I had a whole day to waste. The idea of just lazing around about didn't seem very appealing, so even though I knew it would probably make the police mad, I decided to play detective a bit. First, the dining hall, where the very first murders occurred. The 6 who were being killed in the beginning really were pitiful to look. The weapon was probably a gun. Maybe their heads were split by something powerful like a magnum bullet or a shotgun. That seemed like a valid reasoning. In comparison, Maria, who was the seventh body, had died in a far better and cleaner way. At a glance, there were no external wounds, and it was clear how she had been killed. But there were signs that bubbles had been foaming from her mouth, and it looked like a typical death by poisoning that you might see on a TV drama. Wasn't Maria called out to the chapel and giving her test there? Then why is she here in the corpse-filled dining hall, lying next to her mother, dead? Assuming that the cause of the death was poison, who gave it to her? Her clothes aren't disturbed at all. It's hard to imagine that she was forcibly pushed down and given an injection of poison. It's probably better to assume that she was given a poison capsule or something and made to swallow it. That said, compared to the violent, mutilated corpses scattered about in this room, Maria's corpse was far too clean. With a gun, all you need to do is pull the trigger, but with poison, whether injected or made to be swallowed, would take a lot more effort. Bearing in mind the culprit's brutal nature too, I felt that Maria's death alone had clearly been given special treatment. Why was Maria alone given a sleep-like death? She was killed, so in that sense I still feel very sorry for her, but there can be no doubt about that. But for some reason, the manner of Maria's murder in particular seemed very courteous to me. Maria had her hands joined on her chest in the way that the dead often do. Did Maria do that herself before dying? Isn't this usually something done by someone else after the person dies? Maria was resting in peace, as though sleeping together with her mother, whose head was half crushed. For some reason, the contrast really bugged me. There are probably a lot of mysteries surrounding Maria's death, starting with the cause. And more than anything else, the biggest mystery of this dining hall was the pitfalls. The pitfalls that both Uncle Kraus' group and Goda-san had mentioned. After the 6 had been killed, 5 more had fallen through pitfalls and have been captured. What are pitfalls? Those things that suddenly open and you fall through them, right? The floor was firmly laid with a majestic, if a bit worn out, carpet. It was clearly a single piece. If pitfalls are meant to open up in it, if pitfalls are meant to open up in it, there would have been a seam in that one place. And anyway, if there was some trick-like pitfall, wouldn't it creak when you walked on it? No matter how much I walked over and ran my hands over the carpet, I just couldn't imagine that a pitfall was hidden here. In the first place, it would be one thing if a single person had fallen, but it was a full 5 people. From what I could piece together from all of their stories, each of them had fallen from a different location, so at the very least there had to be 5 separate places concealing pitfalls. So what does this mean? Was this room actually made with pitfalls across the entire floor, so that with a single button press you could open a pitfall in the location of your choice? Some kind of contraption like that. That kind of ridiculous mechanism would be surprising even in a ninja mansion. But even so, if Dad and the rest heard about this, maybe they say, I wouldn't put it past grandfather, yet and you bet he'd do this, he'd make this. In any event, I didn't learn anything more than that from the dining hall. Do the pitfalls not exist? Or do they exist, but if I just can't find them? But I just can't find them, amateur that I am? I can't say for sure. Since they claim that the pitfalls were there, I can't ignore the pitfalls even if I can't find them. The next one to be killed had been Jessica and George Aniki. I had already discovered George Aniki's when I was called out for my test. He was called out to the arbor in the rose garden. Ci avevamo già morto, mi sembra, no? George? Sì. And shot in the forehead, probably with a gun. As for Jessica, she was called to her own room on the second floor of the mansion. I found the door to her room locked, but it wasn't a problem at all since I had the master keys. And the inside of her room was horrible. But the corpse was nothing I hadn't already familiarized myself with in the dining hall, so I'd built up an immunity. The phone receiver was dangling off the hook. Was she killed while on the phone with me? Jessica was leaning against the wall right next to it, with half of her head splattered out. Where Jessica? Corpse discovered in her own room on the second floor of the mansion. Her head was half destroyed. It seems reasonable to think that she was murdered with something like a powerful gun. Destroyed herself with her own strike with Joel's counter-attacking type barrier. Dov'è? Aspetta. L'ho persa. Jessica. As far as I could tell by looking at the scene, it looked as though she had been killed while on the phone. In that case, had the culprit been there before her eyes? I hadn't gotten that impression from Jessica's voice over the phone. I'm pretty sure Jessica said, "They got me." It's probably best to assume that she had already received a fatal wound at the time of the phone call. That's right, and she also said this. By the time you get here, I'll be a corpse with half of my head spilled out. Yes, she definitely said that. From what I could tell by looking at Jessica's corpse, there were no wounds on her other than the damage to her head. Then she was injured seriously enough that she steeled herself for death and then died halfway through the phone call. But it feels like, with the way she was talking on the phone, she was out of danger for the time being. You shouldn't be able to have a casual conversation on the phone if the killer is right in front of you. So, did the culprit come partway through the phone call and kill her? No, that can't be right. After all, this room was locked. No, like hell, that counts as anything. If the culprit had stolen a master key from one of the victims, the fact that it was locked is meaningless. But there are no external wounds other than her head. In which case, should I assume the fatal wound she was prepared to die from and the actual wound that destroyed her head were two different events, both of them made to the same part of the body? In other words, Jessica was struck severely to the head and received an incredible bad wound. Then she called me and either lost consciousness or died while on the phone. Then the culprit came and destroyed her head for real or something. After being called to this room, Jessica was attacked by the culprit and seriously injured. Then the culprit thought they'd kill her and went away from the time being. But then Jessica miraculously started breathing again and called me with a literal dying message. Then the culprit realized that they had failed in killing her and rushed back to deliver the final blow to Jessica, who had lost consciousness from massive blood loss. That seems to make sense, more or less. Except for how Jessica was able to accurately predict the form of the final blow. And there was one more thing that bugged me about the phone call from Jessica. Jessica said this. Shoji-san doesn't make it either. Isn't that awful? She said it almost as though she had witnessed George Anki being killed. But while you certainly could see the rose garden from the window in Jessica's room, the arbor that George Anki had been called out to was very far away. You could only just make out the roof. At the fact, it was the night of a typhoon, and it's very hard to imagine that she was able to witness everything that happened by the arbor from this window. And most important of all, Jessica left before George Aniki, so she shouldn't have known that George Aniki's test had taken place by the arbor. How did Jessica know that George Aniki had been killed? Then, in the course of my search for the entire mansion, I found Kirie-san's corpse as well. Abbiamo un'investigazione completa del nostro detective butler. Kirie. A corpse discovered in the guest room inside the mansion. There was a single hole right in the center of her forehead. It seems reasonable to think that she was shot with a gun or something. A demon stake was rammed into her forehead, but it's difficult to imagine that this was the cause of the death. I didn't miss. I missed on purpose to torment her. She was in an old guest room tucked away on the first floor. This was where all of us relatives used to stay before the guest house was built. The situation with Kirie-san was just like Jessica's. She was probably killed during the phone call with me. The receiver was hanging untidily, and Kirie-san was collapsed beside it. But the way she had been killed was very different from Jessica. Her head wasn't smashed. Instead, something like a stake with an occult-like design was buried into her forehead. It was too gruesome for me, so I pulled it out. It was only after pulling it that I realized that this might get me in trouble with the police later. So even though it was probably a little late now, I lay it by Kirie-san's side. Its tip was sharp and stained with enough blood that it might have penetrated fully to the brain. I didn't know what kind of metal it was made of, but it was about as heavy as a paperweight. Certainly, if you were stabbed all out with something like this, it might cause a terrible wound. I probably understood what this stake meant. Yeah, I know this. It's the method of killing from the fourth twilight onwards in the witch's epitaph. That gouge with a stake and kill thing, probably. However, the human skull is very hard. Even with all one's strength, you could really pierce through it this sharply? No. The way I reason it, this stake wasn't the cause of death. It was just used to damage the corpse after death. She was probably killed by being shot with a gun or something like George Aniki, and the stake was stuck into the hole left by the gun. Thinking about it that way, everything works out. But was Kirie-san really killed with a gun? She had said this on the phone call as well. Kirie-san was under attack even though she was holed up inside a locked room. And this room actually was locked. And she had sent something about a golden thread-like thing flying in through the keyhole and attacking her. And in fact, there were four places around Kirie-san's corpse with a hole that could have been caused by some kind of attack. But still, a golden thread attacked her through the keyhole? I looked at the door from Kirie-san's perspective. If it had been one of those old locks like you see in old mystery movies, where you can peek through to the other side, then you could understand that something might potentially have come through it. But even though the doors in the mansion were old-fashioned, the locks were the familiar average cylinder style that you could find in any normal house. In other words, there was no hole going all the way through by construction. So no matter how thin an object it might have been, it's impossible to imagine that he could have penetrated through the keyhole from the outside and attacked her. Cylinder lock. Keyhole? But Kirie-san had definitely said that something like a golden thread had flown in through the keyhole and spun around and around, aiming for her, attacking her. A golden thread attacking through the keyhole. I couldn't understand what it meant at all. Wait, actually, Kirie-san predicted that I probably wouldn't be able to understand all of this. And not just Kirie-san, Jessica said it over the phone too. No, since the very beginning, from the time we talked with Goda-san and Kumasawa-san and got the phone call from Uncle Kraus group, everyone have been saying the same consistent thing. Grandfather is summoning witches and demons and killing people with magic. We witnessed it happening with our very own eyes. No tricks, no illusions, no choice but to believe it. They all said it with one voice. When that mysterious woman calling herself Beatrice appeared, even I pretty much believed that she was a real witch and might start summoning goat monsters left and right. However, after being left alone for a whole day, once my feeling of tension faded completely, I had a level enough head to think that this was way too stupid to possibly be true. In that extraordinary situation where their lives were exposed to danger, did they just lose their heads a little and mistakenly think that a witch was attacking them with magic? But multiple people testified to the same effect, and on top of that, none of their opinions contradicted one another. If it had been a single person's statement, I'd be able to suspect that they just didn't see what they thought they saw. But doing that now is pretty difficult. Then, right next to the back door, I found Uncle Kraus with his head half destroyed. Aggiungiamolo. Kraus. Corpse discovered in the vicinity of the mansion's back entrance. His head was half destroyed. It seems reasonable to think that he was murdered with something like a powerful gun. A demon stake was rammed into the destroyed portion of the head. None can escape the Chester sisters' golden arrows. Even though it escaped the dungeon of Kuadorian, and somehow made it out of the 6th underground passage and all the way here, he was killed. Buried into the gruesome cross-section of his half-destroyed head was a stake with an occult design just like the one that was driven into Kirie-san's forehead. And in this situation, it was very hard to imagine that this stake was the murder weapon. He was killed with a powerful gun like the 6 in the dining hall. And after death, he was stuck with the stake, like Kirie-san. I wonder if the golden threads that Kirie-san spoke of attacked Uncle Kraus too. Does there exist some kind of tool, like an endoscope, which is very thin but can be moved about at will, and that can also attack people? No way! I've never even heard of anything like that. But even so, if I voiced a suspicion to one of my relatives, perhaps they wouldn't say, I wouldn't put it past grandfather to make one. Since I can't refute the existence of a golden thread X that can be moved at will and attack people, my only options are either to accept this completely incomprehensible weapon, or else to accept that these murders were committed with magic. To find the next corpse, I had to go out through the back door and search around outside a bit. Behind the mansion, in the wild-grown bushes that were almost swallowed up by the forest, there was something like an old well. And right next to it were the corpses of Dr. Nanjon and Shannon-chan. Nanjo. Shannon. Corpse discovered behind the mansion, his head was half destroyed. It seems reasonable to think that he was shot with a gun or something. A demon stake was lying next to the corpse. Corpse discovered behind the mansion, her head was half destroyed. It seems reasonable to think that she was shot with a gun or something. A demon stake was lying next to the corpse. The witnesses understand one thing at least. It was not the stake that killed her. Both corpses had their heads smashed, and there was a stake lying right next to each of the destroyed heads, though they weren't stuck in. All of their corpses were atrocious, but having a look directly at Shannon-chan's lovely face, half of which was blown off, was very painful. Then there was the well, inside which I was told was a secret underground passage to the mysterious mansion Quadorian. By this time I was beginning to think that Beatrice and her accomplices might have used this underground passage to leave for Quadorian. There were supposedly 10 or more of these guys, and hadn't seen hide nor hair of any of them. It made a hell of a lot of sense to think they'd already escaped somewhere else. They had this typhoon to contend with. They couldn't go out to sea. Same for the forest. There was no way they could traverse such a deep, uncultivated forest on foot. In that case, there was only one place for them to go. The mysterious hidden mansion, Quadorian. Io vi sto leggendo piano piano, non sto leggendo tutto perché certi commenti sono lunghi, ma vi sto leggendo e mi piace un sacco come è ragionato. The secret underground passage at the bottom of the well. By this time I had entirely lost my fear of being killed if I happened to come across the enemy. Screwing with me like this. This time I'll march into your mansion. What the hell? Damn it. The old well had a firm cover on it. The cover was an iron grill. The gaps between the bars were perhaps 20 centimeters square. You could peer inside, but it wasn't really something a human could pass through. If I'd known better, I wouldn't have thought it to be anything more than a simple cover to protect against falling in. But from what Kiryu-san had told me, I knew that he had been to prevent the intruders from entering the secret underground passage at the bottom. But the cover was fixed in place extremely firmly, and no matter how much I pushed or pulled, I couldn't even get close to removing it. I couldn't find any obvious lock. Maybe it was sealed by some mechanism. But no matter how much I investigated it, I couldn't find anything to release it. The underground passage in this well is the biggest piece of information I have that Kiryu-san gambled her last moments trying to tell me about. You think you can stop me with something like this cover? You must smash it to bits. I'll search for a tool. I had the idea of where to get one, because I've seen the various tools in the gardening shed where we locked Goda-san and Kumasawa-san in there. But the shutter to the gardening shed was locked. On top of that, the key was with Goda-san, who was inside, dead. In other words, the gardening storehouse was a locked room. There was no way to open it from the outside. In that case, I would have to break the shutter. I wonder if there's a tool for that somewhere. It kind of felt like I was going in circles. Then, while searching for that, I learned that the source of the stench that had been... While searching for that, I learned that the source of the stench that had been permeating the mansion this whole time was the underground boiler room. The boiler room was dimly lit, humid, had a terrible stench, and on top of all of that was incredibly creepy. But there were several large tools there, and I was able to find a fire hatchet and a massive bolt cutter. And grandfather's corpse, too. Discovered as a burned corpse from the incinerator in the underground boiler room. As there were no signs that he fought to get out of the incinerator, he seems to think that he was burned after he was murdered. Dust to dust, ashes to ashes, the dead to the dead. No, strictly speaking, I should probably say that I found the burnt corpse of a person who was probably grandfather. Someone's corpse had been stuffed into the blazing fires of the boiler. However, by coincidence, I was able to notice the number of toes on the corpse. Both feet had 6 toes. Yeah, actually, I might have heard that from Dad at some point long ago. Something about grandfather having polydactyly with extra toes. It was apparently an old Ushiromiya tradition for people with extra finger or toes to be treated as a good omen, saying that they had good fortune or something. And that's why grandfather was selected to be the next head or something along those lines. But I wonder if I can be certain this is grandfather's body just from the number of toes. After all, grandfather was supposed to be the leader of a group of culprits. I don't have a clue why he'd be dead and stuffed in a boiler in a place like this. A mysterious corpse burning and belching out a terrible stench amid the flames. If it really was grandfather, did that mean that the leader of the group of culprits wasn't grandfather, but that Beatrice after all? Grandfather was used because he was convenient and was then thrown away at the end? Unfortunately, it didn't look like I'd been given a chance to hear grandfather's explanation. Now that I have obtained the tool, I thought about immediately taking on the cover to the well. But I decided to break the shutter to the gardening shed first. I had plenty of time to kill anyway. I thought I should check on the condition of Goda-san and Kumasawa-san's corpses. I hit the shutter with the hatchet, breaking into it, stuck the bolt cutter into the crack, and scissored it around, opening up a hole. Then I came face to face with Goda-san and Kumasawa-san's corpses once more. E segniamo anche loro. Kumasawa. Goda. Dove sono adesso? Corpse discovered in the Rose Garden storehouse. It was hypothesized that he was shot in the forehead and then strung up by his neck. They themselves put their necks in the nooses. It was an interesting experience to try on occasion. As long as a locked room could be constructed, anything would have sufficed. As a result, I learned some new facts. First, they did not die by being hanged. Their feet were solidly on the floor, and both of their foreheads showed signs that they had been shot with a gun. When I thought about what a normal noose was like, the rope seemed considerably on the long side. On top of that, the length was different on each to match the height of each person. In other words, the length had been adjusted so that both Goda-san, who was tall, and Kumasawa-san, who was short, had their feet solidly but barely on the ground. Also, while the ropes carried both of their weights as their head lolled, both of them had some slack between their knees. This meant that if they stood upright with the nooses around their necks, there would have been some extra length. In other words, these ropes were a bit unsuitable to hang someone with. The direct cause of death was probably the shot to the head. It was gruesome. Their insides were still dripping out from the deep holes, staining their faces a deep red. Then, when they hung up by their necks and left on this, then they were hung up by their necks and left on display. That probably makes the most sense. If they were shot with a gun, they would probably have been lying down on the floor. But if that had been the case, you wouldn't be able to tell they were dead by peeking through the window. The mountain of stuff would have gotten in the way. So if they have been lying down, they would have been hidden. To make the deaths of these two known to the rest of us who couldn't get inside, they had to hang them like this so we could tell from the outside. Was this to get back at us for thinking that two of them would surely be safe if we left the key with them? I wonder where this shutter key we gave Goda-san, which should have ensured their safety, is now. The key was in his trouser pocket. The gardening shed key had been kindly left there, and even the tag was still attached. In other words, the gardening storehouse was a locked room after all. And that gave rise to another question, because the hanging was inexplicable. If they didn't commit suicide, then the nooses were set up by the culprit. It might have been possible to shoot them through the window, but I really can't imagine that someone could have tied two ropes to the beam from the outside. And on top of that, they would have had to lift up the heavy corpses. There's just no way. In other words, to do all of this, they would have to go inside. But the key was in Goda-san's pocket and the shutter was still locked. In other words, the gardening storehouse was a locked room. Goda-san has said that there was only one key for this shutter, but it is possible that there was a copy, and that it was possible that there was a copy and that the culprit was in possession of it. If we're allowed to theorize that there were actually multiple gardening storehouse keys and that Goda-san just didn't know about them, then this isn't even close to a locked room. But why is that? Despite the fact that almost all of the other corpses were shot to death and left almost completely alone, these two corpses alone were intentionally hoisted up. I couldn't help but feel something a bit odd about that. Assuming that the mystery corpse in the boiler was grandfather, the deaths of 16 people had now been confirmed. There were 18 people on this island. There's me and 16 corpses. Kanon-kun's corpse was the only one I hadn't been able to confirm yet. Effettivamente, guardando anche il nostro schemino lì sotto sugli unici due rimasti. According to Kirie-san, he was killed while climbing out of the well and fell down into it. So with the well closed up like this, it was impossible to check. I tried shining a flashlight through the bars down into the darkness in the depths of the well, but it seems that the jet black darkness had no intention of showing me its innermost depths with this inadequate light. It looked like I had to break the bars after all. Using the hatchets and things I drank out of the boiler room and the gardening shed, I tried breaking the cover of the well. But the metal bars were extraordinarily sturdy, and breaking them wasn't easy. I hit them with the hatchet over and over until my hands started feeling weird and eventually gave up on breaking them. It was impossible. If they were at least wood, I might have been able to break them, but this metal... Yeah, there's no way you can slice through metal bars like butter with a human strength. I can't even begin to understand the story about how Kanon-kun cut through the metal bars. She told me that a light like a red laser beam grew out of his arm and he used it to slice through the metal bars like a knife through butter. Cutting through metal bars like butter? And what's with the red laser beam? Does that mean that he snuck in a burner or something and used that to burn through the bars? Still, just what kind of laser could cut through metal bars like butter? It sounds exactly like those kind of laser beams that showed up in those robot animes I loved as a kid. Stavo aspettando che facesse una citazione a Star Wars, contando che nell'86 Star Wars è già uscito. Non so però se era famoso o se era uscito in Giappone. Immagino di sì, dai. Magari famoso no, fosse uscito in Giappone sì. Ora dell'86. Ma non so quanto famoso era Star Wars in quei periodi, nei primi anni in Giappone. Does stuff like that actually exists? And how did Kanon-kun get that laser beam? As much as I wanted to ask him, he'd already been killed. Plus, even his corpse is now at the bottom of the well beyond this cover. If Kanon-kun managed to slice through those metal bars, I'm sure he could handle this metal cover with a single swing. It kind of feels like a locked room just now, with Goda-san locked inside the gardening storehouse holding the key. Only one person can open the door, but they're locked inside. If only I had the if only I had the power of Kanon-kun's, I could do something about this cover myself. Just who is Kanon-kun? He couldn't really be, human being capable of using a strange power, right? Even Kirie-san told me to believe in witches, and I've also met an insane woman calling herself one. Could Kanon-kun possibly be a human on the witch side? Or else the culprit? What the heck? Am I going to start treating him like the culprit just because I can't find his corpse? Flashback episodio 2. Oh, treating him like he's the culprit simply because there's no corpse. And who was the one blabbling about the suspicious being innocent? Very well. I couldn't bear having you push all the crimes on Kanon and making that into a human culprit story. I will guarantee it with the red. Kanon is dead. Among the 5 in Kirie's group, he was the first to die. In short, he was the 9th victim. Penso di sì, alcune volte è già successo che il volume sia basso, lo sento basso anche io. Non è una cosa di mixing da parte mia. Ogni tanto Beatrice ha la voce bassa. Since there's no corpse, I can't say for sure that Kanon-kun is dead. Vediamo. Lo conta come morto adesso? Sì. Butler could not discover his corpse. Killing him with magic is all very well, but without a corpse he will inevitably be a suspect. Truly anti-fantasy. Which is why I guarantee his death with the red truth. Truly anti-mystery. Ecco fatto. Tutti morti. So my whispering red does not reach the PCU. But it did reach you, right? Io tecnicamente sì, però sarebbe tutto fabbricato adesso. Se è l'ultimo rimasto potrebbe anche fabbricarla come cosa. At this glance, this appeared to be a mass murder committed using something strange that could only be thought as magic. Golden threads that attacked through keyholes. No, we even had testimony that something gold had flown around the dining hall during the first 6 murders. It too might be the same weapon. Then there was the locked room murder of the garden shed and the laser beam that cut through metal bars. That wasn't all. There was much, much more, like the group of goat monsters, the talk of a witch who could create pitfalls just by snapping her fingers, the rabbit-like demons who had fired golden threads. I think there were more, and each and every one of them was ridiculous. I couldn't possibly accept it, and was forced to suspect that it was some kind of trick or mistake. But why in the world had everyone spoken with one voice, saying the same thing without contradiction in their testimony? It's not only the magic. Maria's mysterious death. Jessica somehow knowing that George Anke had been killed. The mysterious burned corpse, which I couldn't confirm actually belonged to my piece of shit grandfather. And more and more. Whole stuff I just don't get. I tilted the button, glugged it down noisily. I didn't have a clue what was going on. After dinner last night, we kids were shooed out of the mansion and told to go back to the guest house, and there was a massacre in the dining hall. Kiryu-san and the rest were dropped through pitfalls and captured. Then Jessica and George Aniki were called out to a test or whatever and killed. Kiryu-san's group managed to escape the dungeon somehow, but all of them were killed in the end. At the very, very end, even Maria was killed, leaving me all alone. In short, I had done nothing except to be locked up in the guest house. During that time, a huge incident had occurred and ended before I knew it. What could I call it except incomprehensible? I don't have a clue anymore. Now I'm nothing but a pig. Plan on leaving only me alive? Hurry up and show yourself and kill me already. I can't be bothered to look for you anymore. And show me your true form yourself. I won't run or hide, so come at me with arrows or bullets or whatever. I haven't had any sleep since yesterday, and I'm tired as hell as all get out. Wanna kill me? Be my guest. I decided to return to the guest house and boldly rest on the bed. As I exited the kitchen and passed through the lobby, that portrait of the witch came into view. The big clock did too, and that very moment it was exactly midnight. At the sound of the bell proclaiming that it was midnight, and the sound of the bell proclaiming that it was midnight rang out. As I listened, I looked up at Beatrice's portrait. Exactly 24 hours ago, I met you. What were you trying to say to me? And where did you go? Who in the world are you? Golden Witch, Beatrice. I haven't solved a single one of the riddles surrounding you. Show yourself and fight with me. Then the witch showed herself. Like a guest of honor finally appearing, she showed herself on the landing at the top of the big staircase. So you finally showed yourself. I've been kept bored for an entire day. Yes. I gave you a whole day. Were you able to sufficiently exercise the right of the human side? Yeah. I was bored, so I had a good go at it. ENG was a good piece. Don't you speak ENG's name. She appeared through a miracle and sacrificed herself to give you the tenacity for certain victory. Don't you speak ENG's name. That brutal death was something that you needed. If you hadn't seen the death, you would have not grown serious. Without the wake-up call of ENG ITA's fated future, the tenacity for victory would not have arisen within you. I told you not to speak ENG's name. In short, she was a necessary sacrifice. Otherwise, an anger great enough to kill me would not have been born within you. The rivalry between us cannot be destroyed. Curse that Lady Belcaster. This was no peace. It would be more fitting to call it a trump card. No matter how helpful a piece is, it will never stray from the board. But a trump card, no matter how powerful its effect, it's always discarded after it is used. ENG was truly a good trump card for you. As Butler outburst of rage, Beato finally stopped talking. You know, I have no more time to spend playing around in a place like this. Even our draws are keeping ENG waiting. I'm going to break through you. Take my family and go back home. I don't have a single second to waste playing witches with you. In that case, I assume you know what must be done. Yeah, I'll beat you down. I'll blast away all witches, magic, illusions, and delusions. Alright, let's do this. I won't ever let you trick me again. The game's restarting. You ready? I'll tear apart the witch's veil that conceals the outright lie you are. You talk too much. All you have to do is simply say, I will kill you. Yeah, if those are the words you want, I'll say them for you. This is the first and last wish of yours that I'll lend an ear to. I thank you. I will. I will kill you. Then by all means, let us begin, Butler. Come, it is time for the witch hunt. Try and chase me, try and corner me, try and kill me. I'm expecting a lot from you. Try and show me what your little sister gave you in her last moments. No, non conta come rosso. Non c'è stato il... Butler's cry burned the world with a white light. And when one's eye were open to that brilliant light, the two of them could be seen in the rose garden. Who takes the first move? Me. Oh, how brave! The rose garden where beautiful rose petal danced. The color of those rose petals was red. Was that a proof or simply a claim that the two of them facing each other in this beautiful rose garden was the red and only truth? That must be why the roses are red. But in the language of flowers, roses are passion, not truth. The flower for truth is a forget-me-not. That flower is blue. I'll piece through everything in my blue truth. From the beginning of it all. I'll start from the very first game. Cazzo quanto sono carico. Siete carichi? Ripassiamo tutti e 4 i giochi. Very well. Show me your skill. Come. Here I go. I've already proclaimed it, but I'll say it again. This isn't just for the murder of Dr. Nanjo in the last game. This will tear apart every scene from every game since the beginning. Ushiromiya Kinzo is already dead. Therefore, the true number of people on the island is 17. By adding an unknown person X to that, it becomes 18 people. By supposing that this person X is exists, the crime is possible even if all 17 people have alibis. By this, even though the number of people reaches 18, it's still possible for a culprit X to exist and carry out the crime, even if all 18 people seem to have alibis. You can break through all of the murders in episode 1 by supposing an unknown person X. Furthermore, it is even possible to explain the mysteries of Kinzo evaporation from the locked room sealed by the receipt, by making the bold assumption that Kinzo wasn't there from the beginning. Unless Beato countered this with a red truth, the witch illusion of episode 1 would be completely smashed. The blue truth was valid. The wedge of blue truth that Butler had released stabbed right through the top of Beato's left foot. Was the red blood that poured out from her defense in the red truth? Beato shut only one of her eyes tight, enduring the unbearable pain from the wedge of blue truth that denied her. Not bad. But I'm still far from denied, far from killed. It is not close to enough. Ma un attimo solo, perché effettivamente la voce è bassa, ma certe volte capitava poco, adesso sta capitando sempre. Il bello è che l'ho alzato di più, lo alziamo ancora di più. The following game contains mysteries that cannot be explained with that alone, do they not? Which mysteries? In the final stages of the second game, George, Goda and Shannon barricaded themselves in Natsui's room and were killed. The key by which they unlocked Natsui's room was locked up inside the room, and all of the remaining keys that could unlock the door were held in the hands of Rosa. Even if the culprit X existed, it should be impossible to construct a locked room. The blue wedge piercing Beato shook. She was resisting, fighting to push it out. No, that doesn't shake my blue truth. If culprit X was in possession of a master key that was not even close to a locked room. No, it was impossible for the culprit to obtain one. All of the master keys were under Rosa's control. But that's meaningless if Aunt Rosa was an accomplice to the culprit. Aunt Rosa handed a key over to culprit X by some method, assisting in the locked room murder. And after that, she retrieved the key by a similar method. You'll have to do better than that, Beato. I've already put forward the theory at that theory at that time. So you did. That wedge had been gradually losing its brilliance and seemed as though it was about to come out, regain its strong blue again thanks to Butler's additional blue truth, and dug into Beato again, eating into her foot. Beato let out a moan of anguish at the pain of it. Yet. This is still nothing. Yet. Not yet. Continuing on to the third game. The 6 linked locked rooms, the murders of Auntie Rosa and Maria, and the deaths of Dad and the others dying in the hall, and the murder of Uncle Klaus and Aunt Natsui, all of them can be explained if we suppose that Aunt Eva was the culprit. That argument was already won back
それ
then.
に対し
And even that
お前
final
が
riddle you,
エヴァを
you
通して出題
proposed
してきた
through
南
Eva,
條先生
the
殺し
murder of Dr. Nanjo,
18 人
can
目
be
の未知の
explained
人
with
物
an
で説明
18th
可能
unknown person
こ
X.
れで第3のゲームまで
Now I've broken
全
through
て
the
打ち破
entire
った
third
ぞ
game. Can you counter
反
that?
論はあるか
無論
Of
こ
course.
の程度
This much is
答え
nothing
は
to
せ
worry
ぬ
about.
ならば
In that
ゲ
case,
ストハウス
how
から
do
の
you
ジョー
explain
ジの
Joe's
失踪はどう
disappearance
説
from the
明
guest
するとい
house?
うのか赤き真実を
I
追
shall
加
add
し
to the red truth.
ジョージは
George did not go down the stairs of the guest house.
窓から飛び去
He
った
flew out of the window. In the final stages of the third game, George suddenly vanished from the second floor of the guest house. Eva, who had been on the first floor, claimed that no one had come downstairs. But if, as the Blue Truth claimed, she was carried, but if, as the Blue Truth claimed, she had carried Klaus and Natsui's corpses outside, there was a possibility that George could have secretly gone downstairs during that gap of time and escaped. But by adding on the red truth, Beato had disproven that. To go outside without going down the staircase to the first floor, he would have had to leave by the window. But all of the windows were locked from the
だ
inside.
からなんだ
So
お前
what?
の言葉通り
It's just like you said.
窓から飛び去
He
ったんだ
flew out of the window,
下へ
right?
飛び降りても
Even if he
芝生じゃ
did
わからな
jump
いし
down, he wouldn't.
no
You
one-
couldn't tell by the grass, and it was raining so
多少の
hard.
痕跡なんて
Any
消え
light
ちまう
tracer would have disappeared.
赤き真実を
I
繰
will
り返
repel the red truth. I will repeat the red truth.
す外部へ通ずる窓
All
も扉も
windows
全
and
て
doors leading to outside were locked from
し
inside.
かもそれらの施錠は
Furthermore,
全
it
て
is impossible to lock any of those from the outside.
ジョージには施錠
George
す
had
る
no
術は
technique
ない
by which to lock them.
青き真実
I
を
will
繰り
repeat
返
the
す
blue truth.
当時の俺も言っ
I
てい
said
る
it myself at that time.
ならば
In that
George
case,
の兄貴が窓
everything
より脱
works
出する
out as long as someone locked the window after George Aniki escaped through it.
何も難しいことはな
Nothing
い
difficult about it. Is this not
この程度で
enough to resist?
結局
Is it not enough? Beato couldn't remove the blue wedge that was buried into her foot. The fake witch was burned once more and more by the strong blue.
第3のゲームまでの
In
全てに
all
おいて
games up to the third, there is still nothing that shakes the blue truth.
なら
In that case,
お前が
the
魔女で
only
ある
game
ことを
that
証
can
明する
prove you
唯
are a
一のゲ
witch
ームは
is this game, the
今
fourth
回の
game.
第4のゲームだけってことになる
わらわが赤き真
As
実
I
に
have
て
not
反撃し
countered
てい
with
な
the
い
red
以上
truth.
そういうこ
That
と
is
にな
indeed
る
the case.
この度のゲー
I
ム
will
で
have
の
to
み
prove witches with
魔女を
only
証明
this
せねば
game.
なるまいなよかろ
Very well.
う存分に来るがよ
Hold nothing back.
食堂の6人殺しについて
There's nothing
不審な点はない
strange about the 6 murders in the dining
18人目
hall.
の X が
The
銃を
18
乱射して
person
みんな
X
を
went
殺した
wild with a gun and killed
落
everyone.
とし穴については
Regarding the
実際に
pitfalls,
落
there
とし
is
穴が
every
本当
chance
に
that
隠
the
されていた可能性もあるし
pitfalls truly were hidden
キリエ
there.
さんの仮説である
It's also possible to
瞬時に
explain
混
them
沌
with
させる
Kiri's and
毒矢
Stiri
の発射装置
hypothesizing
X
the
の過程でも
existence
説
of
明
a
可
poison
能
dart shooting device X, which can knock a person out
ジョージ
instantly.
の兄貴ジェ
The
シカ
murders of Giorgianiki, Jessica,
Shikaro
and
から
those
脱
who
出したメンバー
escaped
の
from the
殺害も
dungeons can also be
食堂と
explained
同
with
じで
guns,
銃による
like
もの
in the dining
不
hall.
審な点はない
There's nothing strange about it.
だが分かってる
And I
ぜ
know you have a
反撃
counter
があるん
attack,
だろ
right?
来いよ
Bring it on.
そなたの最大の
Your
ライバルである
greatest
18
sword,
人
the
目の X
18th person X,
金蔵がすで
is
に
based
死
on
ん
the
でいるとの
theory
仮
that
説に立
Kinzo
脚し
was
て
already dead.
そう来ること
I
は
knew
わら
that
わも分か
you
ってい
would
る
make that claim.
だから金蔵を
That is
書
why
斎
I
よ
took
り出す
Kinzo out of his
そ
study.
の金蔵
Everyone at the family conference welcomed that
全員
Kinzo,
が
did
迎
they
えた
not?
ぞ親族会議に居合わせた
All
全
of
員
the
が
present,
Kinzo
all
の
those
存在を
present
認
at
め
the
た
family conference acknowledged the existence of Kinzo.
そうだなだが
My
じいさま
grandfather
はずっと視線
supposedly
をさ
been
まよって寝
seriously
込んでい
ill,
た重病人ってことに
confined
な
to
って
his
る
bed,
ね
hovering on the verge of death for ages,
や
right?
つれてて別人に見
Even
え
if
ちまっ
he
て
was so
も
worn out that he looked like a different
気にしないかも
person,
な
maybe no one would have paid that any notice. What about that?
俺は後
I'll
悔する
come back at you with this.
そのじいさま
That grandfather was a different person, a body double.
親族たちがじい
A
さまと見
different
間違えた
person who the
別人だ
relatives mistook for grandfather.
ならば我らは
Then
後悔
respond with this.
すべての人物
No person would
後ろ宮
mistake
金蔵を
Ushiromiya
見間違わない
Kinzo by sight.
いかなる転送で
No
あっても
matter what disguise, they would not mistake Ushiromiya Kinzo by sight.
ならば後
Then
悔する
what about this?
お前は
By
第一のゲー
declaring
ム
with
時
the
では
red truth in the second game that the number of master keys was 5, when in the first game the number was
赤き
more
真
than
実で
5,
5本以後のゲームの
you
設定
change
変
the
更を
premises
行って
of the later games.
同じことで
In the same way, there is a possibility that Kinzo's
金
life
蔵
or
の
death
生死の設
status
定が
was
変更されてい
changed
る
for
可
the
能
fourth
性があ
game.
るよって
Therefore, Kinzo's existence in the fourth game does not serve as
それ以
proof
前の
that
ゲ
he
ームでの
exists,
金蔵の
that
存
he
在を証明す
existed in
る
the
ことには
previous
ならない
games.
よって
Therefore, even if we
食堂での
suppose that the
六人殺し
six murders in the
じい
dining
さまが自
hall
ら
were
執行
carried
したと
out by
仮定しても
grandfather himself
何の矛盾も
doesn't
生じな
create
い
any contradictions.
ならば
Then I'll
後
counter
悔そう
with
ぜ
this.
4つのゲーム
Kinzo's life or
金
death
蔵の
status
性
is
質
the
設定
same at the start of
全て同
each
一である
of the four games.
第4のゲームの
The
み
setup
設
was
定が
not
異なるこ
different
とは
for
ない
the fourth game alone.
復唱要求
Repetition requested.
各ゲームの開始
Kinzo was alive at the
金
start
蔵
of
は
every
生
game.
存している
復唱拒否
Decline repetition.
答えのよ
I won't answer,
我ら
Butler.
はそなた
I
に
will not
望まれて
respond with the
赤
red
き真
truth
実
you
を答え
desire.
はせぬ
Damn it. Old man, you're standing in my way.
我が最愛の
Are
魔
you
女ベアト
putting
リーチェを
yourself on the
守る
line
た
to
めに
protect Beatrice,
体を
your
張ってや
beloved
がって
witch?
のか
My goddamn granddad waved into vision. Yeah. Is he trying to be some kind of knight blocking the way between me and Beato?
バトラーよお前にこの脇が
Butler,
越えら
are
れる
you
かな
capable of surpassing me?
至らせぬ
I won't let
至
you
らせ
reach.
はせぬよ黄金の魔女の高みにはな
I will not let you reach. Not to heights of the golden witch. Oh no.
お前の浅はかな
Your
推理など
shallow logic
私一
cannot
人を
even
超えること
surpass
も
me
できぬ
alone.
わ死ねえ
Die. E la Madonna. Kinzo jet black cape spread as though it would swallow the world, becoming the snout of a vast black dragon which came at me trying to swallow me in one mouthful. As I faced the roaring of the black dragon, I calmed my breathing and closed my eyes tight.
お前なぞ一息
I'll swallow you up in a single gulp.
消え去
Be
れ
gone.
熟者め
Be gone, you witless, inadequate fool!
黙りな
Shut your trap, you
心
demon
底愛の
dark
亡
ghost.
霊め
ほうわしを
You
亡
can
霊
call
呼
me
ば
a
わしてみせるか
Ah, oh, so you call me a ghost?
あくまでも
You
わしは
intend
すで
to
に
see
死ん
it
で
through
おる
the
とする
end, then.
仮説を貫
That is
く
theory
か
that I am already dead.
それがお前
That will be your undoing.
第4のゲ
On
ー
the
ムの第
first
1
twilight
の
of
番
the
に
first
て
game,
闇に
the
飲み
darkness
込まれ
shall
て消え
swallow
去るが
you
よ
up.
い
The black dragon vast mouth, its snout and fangs threatened to swallow Butler's whole. In that instant, Butler suddenly opened his eyes.
ありがとうよ
Thanks,
ベアトリーチェ
Beatrice.
お前の第三
Your third game was the
俺の
foothold
反撃の
I
足が
needed
かり
for
と
my
なる
counterattack.
何
What?
あばよ
See ya,
クソじじい
my old bastard.
こいつでお別れだぜ
This is goodbye.
俺は
I lay out the following theory to demonstrate that I have applied the dead Kinzo hypothesis even to the fourth game.
よかろう
So be it.
存分に
Come at me with all you have, my
我が
descendant.
手よ
行くぜクソじじ
I
い
go, you sack of old
金蔵
bones.
の名は
My theory is that Kinzo's name is passed on as the title of the Ushiromiya family has.
後宮金蔵はすでに死
Ushiromiya
んでい
Kinzo
る
was already dead,
そして
and he passed his name on to someone else. Everyone acknowledged it, and therefore all of those present at the family conference acknowledged the existence of Kinzo. There wasn't even any need for this person to disguise themselves as grandfather, because everyone recognized a new Kinzo. Therefore, they didn't actually mistake Kinzo by sight. As long as the preceding theory is not disproving, nothing can change the fact that you are dead. This is the final blow. Old geezer, this repetition request is for you. Not one person had multiple different names. Rest in peace, you old grand bastard. You should thank me. You were finally able to die. This is your requiem. Take it and drop them. Ushinomiya Kinzo was already dead. Yeah. Poor old you. Whenever we find your corpse, it's always completely burned. That was a gimmick to prevent discovering of the fact that time had passed since your death, and you passed your name on to someone else. With this theory, even though you are dead, Kinzo can still appear at the family conference. How is that? This is checkmate! Several dozen blue stakes bored into Kinzo's ghost. Their terrible destructive power would never permit the ghost to recover. Thank you for everything. Rest in peace. I will not forget these days I spent with you. Dispersing along with the shadow of the black dragon as golden flower petals scattered, Ushinomiya Kinzo became a gold-colored cyclone and disappeared. Even after death, you fought for the sake of the woman you loved. Your love and madness were, without a doubt, the real thing. No hard feelings, let the dead sleep. Don't wake them. You're next. And you will be the last. Beato still couldn't pull off the blue wedge that pierced her foot. Beato realized that she was on the verge of death. I've gone along with you a whole bunch. I think I've more than fulfilled any responsibility to play with you. But it's about time we finish things up. I've got a lonely little sister waiting at home. Me and my family are going home. Then kill me. Then try and kill me. Not run or hide. At this point, even dodging is beyond my capabilities. Yeah, you got it. With the 18th person acts from the dead Kinzo theory, everything remaining is pierced through. George Aniki and Jessica's death in the fourth game can also be explained by Culprit X. And the 5 who escaped from the dungeon and were killed, and the 2 in the gardening shed, and Maria in the end. All of those can be explained with the 18th person X. It's nothing strange at all. This concludes the explanation of the culprit. It's humans. For all games.
Beatrice.
Beatrice. This is...
Checkmate だ。
Several blue stakes were driven into Beatrice, who could not dodge, skewering her. Beato grabbed the stakes, trying to pull them out somehow.
食らっちまった。
He got me.
痛えよ。こりゃ
This
死ぬな。
will kill me.
こいつを引き抜かな
Don't
きゃ
pull these out.
死んじまう。
Die.
痛いのは
I don't want pain.
嫌だ。辛いのは
I don't want to
嫌。
suffer. With both hands, Beato firmly grasped one of the blue stakes. Naturally, the power of the blue truth to deny witches burned her hands. Unable even to hide her tears at the pain, Beato howled and tried to pull out the stakes with all of her might.
これで抜けなきゃ
I'll die.
死んでしまう。これが
This is
最後
final
の反
counterattack.
撃ならバトラ
Then Butler.
ー。我が魔法
All
の
of the
数々
innumerable displays of magic.
どう説明
How
す
do
る
you
の
explain those?
一番最初に
The
登
very
場した
first
のは
time they appeared was
第
in
二
the
のゲー
second
ムにおい
game
て
when they fixed
わ
Maria's
らわがマリア
pumpkin's
のかぼちゃの
marshmallow
マシュマ
for
ロを
her.
直してやった時だ。この
That
時
time, Rosa definitely
ローザは
witnessed
その魔
that
法を
magic.
確かに目撃している。
Certainly, Rosa had witnessed gold butterflies gather and fix a marshmallow by the miracle of magic.
ローザ
Rosa
一人
alone
の目撃
witnessing
で
it
は
isn't very
信憑性
credible,
がないであろ
right?
う。だからわらわ
That is
は
why I increased the number of witnesses to the uppermost limit,
それこそが
to which is
今回
what
のゲームよ。
this last game was all about.
我が眷属たちの
Summoning
召
of my
喚、
minions,
そして魔法に
and
よる
those
虐
brutal
殺、
magical murders.
それらのすべて
All
を
of them were
大勢の
witnessed
人
by
間
a
たちに
great
目
many
撃させ
people.
た。それこそが
That is itself
我が魔法の存
proof
在す
that
る
my
証
magic
明。
exists.
これを
How do you explain
どう
that?
説明するのか。後ろ宮バトラ
ステイルメイト。
Stalemate.
ー。
What?
魔法があるから魔法は
Magic
ある。
exists because magic exists.
そういう論法には
I
できないっ
believe
て
the
のは
rules of our brown troop
俺たちのブラウン
trial
管
said
裁
that
判
that
の
kind
ルー
of
ルのはずだ
argument
ぜ。
doesn't work.
そうだった。
You're right.
誰が
No matter who or how many
魔
people
法を目撃しようとも
witness magic,
それは魔
that
法の
will
存在
never
の
be
証明に
proof
は
of
ならない。
magic's existence.
俺はお前が見せてきた
Whether
全て
all
の
the
魔法
magic
の
you've shown
存在
exists
する
or
しない
not,
のいかんに
I
関わら
can
ず
ignore it and explain
その全てを
things
無
with
視して
humans.
それは
That
俺の
is
不
my
可侵の権利
inviolable
である。
right.
違ったか。
Am I wrong? At those words, the blue stakes let out an even brighter light, repelling my hands away.
やはり
As I
抜け
feared,
ぬか。
I can't pull them out at all. After all, huh? As Butler is now, even if I cited each individual piece of magic and demanded an explanation for each, he would probably use any means available to him to deny all of them. Not just the marshmallow magic that showed Rosa, but all of my magical miracles. I can no longer even claim to be a witch without entering into debates about how something like a marshmallow was fixed. I am in such an inferior position that I'm forced to fight over trivialities like that.
わらわは
Maybe
無理かもしれ
impossible for me.
ぬ。わかっている。
I knew this.
もとより
This was the game without victory.
勝ちのなき
This was a
ゲ
game
ームだった
without victory from the very beginning.
なれば
So it was only
いつ
natural
か
that
破
the
れ
day
る
of
日
my
が来る
defeat
のは
would
当然
eventually
のこ
come.
と。 わらわは
I have fought
バトラ
Butler
に敗れるためだけに今日までを
up until
戦
today
ってきたとい
just
う
in
のか。
order to lose to him.
勝てるかもし
I
れないと
began these games thinking I might be able to win.
簡単には勝
Even
てな
if
く
I
ても
wouldn't be able to win easily, I
無限に
believed that in a
繰り返す
game
ゲームの
repeating
中
endlessly, a miracle would
いつか
eventually
奇跡が
occur.
起こると信じてた。何しろ
After all, I have the
わらわに
absolute
は絶対に
determination
勝つという
to win for
絶対の意
certain.
志がある。しかし
But now, I have completely
今やその
lost
奇
that
跡は
miracle.
完全に失われた。そして
An absolute,
絶
certain
対の意志は
determination
バトラに
resides
宿
in
る。
Butler, leaving me
私には万一
with
の
no
奇跡も
miracle
絶
for
対
certain.
にない。いや
No. Perhaps I should
奇跡
say
も
with
絶
no
対もない
miracles or
が
certainty.
正しいのか。勝利は
No
なく
victory and no conclusion to
引き
through
分
a
けによる
draw.
終了もない。唯一許さ
The
れた
only
決着
resolution
敗
permitted is
北を与えられる
defeat.
まで永遠
And
と
until
抗
it
う
is
だけ
given
の
to me, all I can do in this game is to continue on resisting.
そうさ
That's right. I'm
バトラに殺さ
fighting
れる
only
た
so
めだ
that I
けの
can be killed by Butler. I looked into Butler's eyes. It was not me inside them. Reflected in those eyes were the figures of his little sisters waiting for his return and the family he had to bring back to her. He no longer sees me, even as an individual. Of course he doesn't. From the very beginning, he had been fighting to deny the individual I am. That last game.
前回のゲームは面白かったな
That was so much fun.
ちょっと騙しただけだったけど
All it was a little bit of a trick,
ほんのわずかの
but
間
for
だけで
even just a short period
分
of
かり合え
time.
たような感じに
It
ね
felt like we understood each other, and
面白かったな
it was so much fun.
そうだよ
That's right.
あそこで手を打
I
ってお
should
けば
have
よか
settled
ったんだ
right
よ
there and then.
バトラがコロッと
I should have
騙されたま
continued
ま
for
永
eternity
遠
with
に騙
Butler
し続けて
totally
ればよか
fooled.
ったんだでもダメなんだよな
That just wouldn't be any good, would it?
あれじゃ本当の
Just
勝ちじゃ
wouldn't
ない
be
んだよ
true victory.
これで
Is this
チェックメイ
checkmate,
トかベアトリーチェ
Beatrice? Ran through with several blue stakes, Beato was still in standing position, skewered to the ground many times over. Unable even to fall over because of this, and still looking up into the sky, she was sewn in place. Her magic form might have been a fitting end for the cruel witch who had endlessly toyed with 18 people's lives and who had killed constantly for hundreds and thousands of years. Gently, as though someone was mourning for something, rain began to fall. Amid the rain, Beato was exposed to the elements, crucified.
終わりなのか
Is it over, Beato?
ベアト
There
グ
is
ーの音も出ぬわ
nothing I can say.
まだだろ
No way you're
お前
done.
はこの程度で
You aren't a woman who lets
終わる女
things
じゃねえだ
end
ろ
with justice.
無茶を
Don't
言う
be unreasonable.
この姿がど
How
う
can
見た
you
ら
look at me
終わっていないよ
and think that this
Yeah.
isn't over? Hurry
早
up and
くと
deliver
ど
the
めを
final
刺せよ
blow.
言っちまえよ
Just say it
お前の
with your blue truth.
青き真実で以上により
Therefore,
魔女は存在しないって言っちまえよ
just say it
その一
with
撃で
that single
私
blow.
の息の
Take
止
my
めてしまえ
last breath away.
ダメだな
That's no good.
根をほうわらわに
Oh,
こ
you
れ以
ask
上
me to continue subjecting
Ikihaji.
myself to humiliation.
さらせというのかすでに
It
決
is
着は
already
ついておろうに
立てよ
Stand up.
俺たちの殴り合い
Our
は
brawl isn't over yet.
まだ終わってない
まだ
Still, you say?
お前のそれは
I have.
負けじゃない
What I see there isn't you
もう
losing.
やめたと
You've just resigned,
投了しているだけ。
decided you have had enough.
いいではないか。
What's wrong with that?
棟梁で
Designing.
それ
It
でそ
still
なたの
means
勝ちだ
victory
ろう
for you.
とっとと
You should return to your little sister
帰るがいい
right away.
わらわなど
Just
この場
abandon
に
me
打ち捨ててい
right
け
here.
俺は言ったはずだ。
Didn't I tell
逃げ
you
ない。
I won't run
そして
away?
お前を
And
逃が
I
さない。
won't let you get away either.
お前は
Who are you?
そして一体
And what in the world
何が
was
望み
your
だったんだ。
purpose?
それが知りたくば
If you want to know,
そなた
why
のお
don't you
箱
just
でも
try your
試せばよ
favorite move?
いいではないか
Why does it
た
matter?
だの
Just
妄
a
想
fantasy,
そ
an illusion.
それで
Can't
い
you
いではな
leave
い
it at
か
that?
全然ダメだぜ。
That's no goddamn good at all.
俺はお前を
I
逃がさない。
won't let you run away.
俺はお前を
I'm going to defeat
打
you.
ち破る。このまま逃がして
Like
なる
hell,
のか。
I'm going to let you escape.
お前をうやむ
I
やに
won't
したま
let you
ま
run back into the darkness of illusions, leaving you all vague like
打
this.
ち破る。
I'm going to break through
完全
you
にな。
completely.
だから立て。
So on your
弱々しい
feet,
ふりなん
don't
か
act
するな。
like all frail
お
like
前はま
that.
だなんてか
You're
隠
still
した。
hiding several
俺
moves.
にはわかる。
I can tell. Why won't you let me escape?
おとなしく見逃してくれぬのか
親父を、おふくろを、
Mom, an
そびとこ
angel,
のみんなや
all of my
親族のみ
cousins
ん
and
な、
all of my
そ
relatives,
して
all
使
of
用
the
人のみんな
servants.
を、お前はあれだ
All
けも
those
てあそん
times
で
you've
殺
killed
した
them, all of those times you toyed with their
その
lives.
非道を
I will never
俺は
forget,
絶対に忘れ
and
な
I
い
will never
許さない
forgive your inhumanity.
俺の肩にはよ
I can still feel Angel's arms on my shoulders.
腕俺は
I will not
お前の非道を
forgive your
許
inhumanity.
さないだから
So I won't let you get away like this. Butler's eyes burned with the flames of hatred. The days when I could earn his passion by appearing frail are now a matter of a distant past. Having been tricked once, Butler will never sympathize with me again.
狼と羊の
Never
パズ
mind
ル
the
どころ
wolves
か
and sheep
こ
puzzle.
れじゃ
This is like the boy who cried wolf, isn't it?
どうすればいいん
What
だ
am
よ
I supposed to do?
どうす
What should I
れ
do?
ば負けを認めぬた
I
めだ
guess
けに
fighting
人間に
endlessly
戦
just to
う
avoid admitting defeat is an
無限
endless
の魔女に
torture
ふさわしき
fitting for
無
the
限の
endless
拷問
witch.
かバトラに勝利を与
I
え
guess
ぬために
endlessly
無限
harassing
に嫌がら
Butler
せを繰り
to
返
avoid
す
giving him victory is part of being the endless witch as well.
悲しい
So
な
sad.
こんなのが
Is this
無
really
限の魔法
the endless magic?
もう嫌だ
I've had enough
魔女たち
of endlessly being made into a witch's plaything.
に嫌だ
I've had enough.
勝ちはなく
No victory and no conclusion
引き
with
分
a
け
draw.
終了もないならば
In that case, there
わ
is
らわを
only
解放
one
してくれる
conclusion
結末
that can release me.
魔女の道に落ちた
Since
時
the
から
time I descended the path of the witches,
悪魔と契約をし
since
た
the
その日
day
から
I made a contract with
末
demons,
路は悲劇
was it
であ
not
ると
promised that tragedy would be my ultimate fate?
どうした
What's wrong?
黄金の魔女
Golden Witch,
ベアトリーチェ
Beatrice.
ロッケン島の
If
支
you
配
are
者なら
the
ば
true ruler of Rock and
最
Jima,
後もそれにふさわしい貫禄を見せてみろ
face your end with an appropriate majesty. Lightning, the world was smashed with white, fitting last moments for the ruler of Rokkenjima. Still pierced by the blue stakes, Beato faced the rainy sky and let out a laugh. Then she slowly raised her face and fixed her eyes on Butler.
愚か者め
Fool,
そなたの
I
健
have
闘をたたえ
considering handing you the
勝
victory
ちを
in praise
譲ってや
of
ろ
your
うと
good
思った
fight.
慢
You
心した
shall regret your complacency.
それは譲られるものじゃない
Victory is not something for you to hand
お
over.
前から
It's
奪い取る
something
も
I'm
のだ
gonna snatch from
お
you.
前だってそうだろうが
You don't pretend you're any
俺
different.
が
You
魔
couldn't
女はい
accept
て
the
もいい
victory
かななん
by
て言い出す
being handed to you on a silver platter when I started saying stuff like, maybe it's alright for witches to exist. And that's exactly why you intentionally fell apart like that in the end of the last game. That's right, that one last time. You showed mercy on me. Now I'm making us hero. Stand, my enemy, my gold witch.
Beatrice!
Idiot. You idiot. Simpleton. Don't think you'll ever get another chance. When Beato yelled, the blue sticks have been piercing her chest blew to bits and disappeared. However, the blue wedge that had pierced her foot in the beginning did not disappear. You haven't pulled it out yet. You haven't pulled out the blue truth of the 18th person X. I will respond to one of your repetition requests. As you reasoned, Kinzo is already dead at the starting time for all games. E questa ce l'abbiamo, che bello finalmente che abbiamo questa conferma. However, in that case, all I need to do is take one person out. Thus far, I have been declaring that no more than 18 humans exist on this island. I will lower that by one for Kinzo. No more than 17 humans exist on this island. That excludes any 18th person. In short, this 18th person X does not exist. This applies to all games. E per rispondere alla domanda di Andrew, sì, anche per i giochi futuri. You still had some crazy stuff up your sleeve after all. This island only had 17 humans on it, but all this time it's been made to look as if it were 18. And now that we've taken one off and brought it down to 17, we finally reached the correct number. Now, the wedge I knocked into you has been removed. We'll have to start to fight over back from square one. The blue wedge that had been sewn into Beato in place broke apart. That had sewn Beato in place broke apart. There was no longer anything piercing Beato. The scars on her body had disappeared completely. There, just as Butler had hoped for, stood the imposing figure of the Golden Witch who ruled Rokkenjima. Now come, Butler. Once again, from the beginning, try to break through everything with the blue truth. I too will no longer run, or hide. If you prove to be good for nothing, if you prove to be good for nothing, then I shall decide this match right here and now. I will make you forever regret not settling for victory I handed to you. Come, start from the first game. Right, from the first twilight of the first game. There is nothing strange about the murder of the 6 relatives that were found in the gardening shed in the beginning. The crime was possible for any of those who didn't have an alibi. Valid. Continue. What about the next locked room murder with Eva and Hideyoshi? Even the chain was set for that locked room. I shall add to the red truth. Perché non avevamo red truth nel primo, ricordiamoci. Both deaths were homicides. It is not the case that after the construction of the locked room, one of them committed suicide and after murdering the other. Furthermore, the murder was carried out with both the victim and the perpetrator in the same room. No method exists for the perpetrator to commit murder from outside the room. Suppose that the culprit was a human without an alibi, in other words, the dead. Among the first 6 corpses, there were some made unidentifiable because their faces were smashed. One possible theory is that one was actually a fake corpse, and that some culprit X killed those two after pretending to be a victim and hiding away. Then, after the locked room murder was constructed, the culprit hid under the bed and waited for all of us to leave. Very well. Next. Canon killed in the boiler room, correct? I shall add to the red truth. All of the survivors had alibis. Let us include the dead as well. In short, no kind of human or dead person in the island could have killed Canon. If no one could kill him, then he might have been the one to kill. Meaning Canon-kun might have killed himself. Repetition requested. Canon-kun did not commit suicide. Canon did not commit suicide. One more. Repetition requested. Canon-kun's death was a homicide. I decline to repeat. That refusal still admits the possibility of a homicide, but you've already declared in red that no one could have killed him. In other words, it wasn't a homicide. This is the same as the linked locked room from the third game. Canon-kun died for a reason that was neither suicide nor homicide. Though the circumstances are unclear, he died from an accident. By the devil's proof, I refuse to explain what kind of plunder could have led to an accidental death, where a stake was driven into his chest. Now that you have borrowed the power of the devil, you are without peer. It is valid. In that case, what about the murders after that in the parlor of Genji, Nanjo, and Kumasawa? Naturally, Maria, who was in the same room, did not kill them. And of course, the 3 deaths were homicides. We can explain it with the one who carried out the murder being a culprit X, who used an identifiable corpse to disappear. In the first place, their 3 faces were also pulverized. It's completely possible that one of them was a body double corpse. I guarantee the identity of all the unidentified corpses. Therefore, there were no body double tricks. Then I can explain it with simultaneous murders. Each of them had a gun pointing it in a clockwise pattern and blew each other's faces off at the same time. After that, Maria collected those guns and hid them. How about that? What a ridiculous argument. I like it. Then what about Naku in the end? I shall add to the red truth. Naku's death was a homicide. There are no corpses of an unknown identity, and all of the survivors have alibis. You can explain it with an indirect murder by Trap X. Something was done to Aunt Natsui's gun. You can explain it if that was a trap gun built to send a bullet right into the forehead of anyone who tried to hold it up and shoot it. The bullet burned into Natsui's forehead was not fired from Natsui's gun.
夏日おばさんは内
There
容
is
不明
the
の手紙により
possibility that Aunt
おび
Natsu
き出
was
された可
lured
能性が
out
ある
by the letter of unknown content, and she was
王に
called
呼び出された。
called out into the
そして
hall.
特定の時刻
Then she was
特
forced
定の
into
場所に立つ
standing
ように
into
強い
a
られ
specific location at the
あらかじめ
specified
設置してあった
time
銃を利用したトラップ
and
X に
murdered
よ
by
り
some trappets,
殺害され
which
たん
used
だ
the gun that had been installed, which used the gun that had been installed there beforehand.
素晴らしい。
Splendid.
そなたの暴
Your
論は
absurd arguments even feel pleasurable to me now. I shall surrender the
第一のゲーム
first game
そな
to
た
you
に
out
譲
of
ろう
respect.
完璧し
I
た。
am impressed. The instant Beato admitted defeat in the first game, the stake of blue truth once again pierced her chest, letting out a terrible sound.
これくらい
This much
答えぬ。
won't stop me. It's not
まだ
over
まだ
yet.
来い。
Come. The
第2
second
の
game.
ゲームだ。
Beato just barely pulled the stake that had pierced her chest out, but even though there was no hole left behind, it seemed to be a deep wound which let out a massive amount of blood, and an intense pain of equal measure tormented her. But Beato grinned, grinding her teeth and pushed for the next game to start. They won't feel any sympathy. Just by her existing here, we will be killed and made to suffer over and over. And ENG will be burdened with a future of isolation.
そうと。
That is
わら
correct.
わのここ
Just by you being
た
here
だ
and
笑うだ
laughing,
けで
the eternal
永遠
hell
の地
will
獄は続く。
continue.
そなたを
I
妹
will
に
not
返
give
し
you
は
back
し
to
ない
your sister.
妹は
She can spend 1,000 years crying over the family that is never to return.
くそが
Start!
情けも容赦もしね
No
えぜ
mercy. Here goes the second game.
まずは最初の事件だ
I start with the first game.
6人が殺された礼拝
I've
堂での
already
密
saw
殺
through
に
the
ついて
locked room murder,
当時
where
の
the
俺が
six
すで
were
に
killed
カン
in
パ
the
している
chapel at the
マ
time.
リアの鍵を
Someone secretly borrowed Maria's key and
事件
secretly
終了後
returned
に
it to Maria's
密かに
bag
マリア
after the
のカバン
crime
に
was
戻し
over.
たんだ
マリアの鍵は
For the time Maria received the key to the instant Rosa unsealed the envelope the next day, the key did not pass into anyone's hands.
ジジイの書斎と同じ構造
There
で
is the possibility that the door to the chapel had an auto lock, just like Graham's study.
つまり
In other words, it was unlocked before the crime with a rock or something wedged in it so it couldn't close completely.
そして
Then they
鍵
gave
を
the
マリア
key
に
to
預け
Maria.
た施錠はオートのため
Because the lock was automatic, it is possible to make a
鍵は
theory
必要なかったとの仮説もあり得る
where the key wasn't needed.
金蔵の書斎以外
No door with an auto lock exists
オートロックの扉は存在しない。
other than Kinzo's study.
扉は犠
The
牲者たちが
victims were locked,
内側から閉
locked
め
the
た
door from
6
inside.
人の中に犯
One
人
of
が
the
いて
six was the
5
culprit,
人を
and
殺し
this
死ん
person
だふ
killed
り
the
をし
other
ていた
5, then pretended to be dead.
6人は発見時
The six
すでに
were
全
all
員死
dead
亡していた
before, by the time they were discovered.
全員が他殺
All of
だ
their deaths were homicides.
6人は全員が
All
純粋な犠
six
牲
were
者
pure
相互の
victims.
殺人
They
には
did
関
not
与し
take
ない
part in a mutual
ああい
murder.
う殺人は
There
存
were
在し
no
ない
simultaneous mutual murders.
熊沢さんをはじめ当時アリバイがない人間が存在したそんな誰かが6人を殺し
There existed humans with no alibis at the time. For example, Kumasawa-san. If we assume that such a person killed six and was hiding inside, there are no problems.
あの礼拝堂には
There
誰も
was
隠れてい
no
な
one
かっ
hiding in
た
chapel.
よって
Therefore, your killer hiding in the building locked room scenario does not hold.
どうしたい
What's wrong,
後ろが
Shiramiya
バート
Butler? Is
そ
that
れで
all?
終わりか第2
It's
の
not
ゲ
so
ームから
easy once you get to the second
But
game,
nice.
right? A tremendous exchange of red and blue truth. The stakes of wedges, and wedges of blue truth that I sent flying darted at Beato one after another, and one after another Beato cut them down with a red truth, a red treasured sword, knocking them out of the air. but the blood she had lost from the first game was probably awful. This intense exercise was putting her under an even greater strain. I could see her breath growing ragged. That's why I can't hold back now. I'll corner that witch. And this time I'll break through her.
まだだぜ。
Not done yet. And that's no good.
全
Goddamn
然ダ
good
メ
at
だ。
all.
俺のヘリクツは終わ
My
っちゃいねえ
twisted
ぜ。
logic isn't finished yet.
ならばこれは
Then
どう
what
だ。
about this?
彼らに与えられた飲食物に小型爆弾が入っていて腹の中で爆発した。つまりトラップ X による犯行の可能性。気づかずに飲み込んで腹をぶちまけるような爆弾の詳細については悪魔の証明。説明拒否。
The food they were given had small bombs in it, which exploded from the inside of their stomachs. In other words, the crime is possible through Trap X. The details of the bomb that they could swallow without noticing and that could blow up in their stomach is the devil's proof. I refuse to explain. What the hell is that? Small bombs? But Beato failed to knock down the blue wedge as it flew it at an angle like a curveball. He let out a loud tongue and gouged itself deep into her left shoulder. However, despite being on the receiving end of it, it seemed she couldn't stop laughing at how much of a curveball it was. Yeah, no wonder, even I'm amazed at how screwed up this reasoning is. Laugh as much as you want. Is there a problem with it? None. Your wild arguments are my pleasure. And the next, the locked room with Jessica and Cannon? No problems there. If the culprit was one of the servants, they could have used the master key. It's not even a locked room. After that, there was an attack in the servant room from a mystery person who seemed to be Cannon, and Nanjo and Kumasawa were killed, right? I had already declared Cannon deaf in red before that time. Then, who was that Cannon?
カノン君の死亡は赤で宣言済みならば生きているわけがない。よって襲われた彼らがカノン君と誤認するような何者かの変装の可能性がある。
If Cannon-kun's death was declared with red, there's no way he was alive. Therefore, there is a chance that it was someone else in a disguise that would make the group that was attacked mistake this person for Cannon-kun. They would never mistakenly think any person was Cannon. Then, just like the hereditary Kinzo of Kinzo's name, there is a possibility that Cannon's name was inherited by someone. We could suppose that Cannon-kun was killed, a different person succeeded his name, and this person attacked them. Sound like a watermelon being squashed to rang out. And a blue wedge was buried deep into Beato's left flank. It looked like she felt that one. Maybe I hit her in a bad spot. After leaning over and moaning for a while, she left it off as though trying to make it seem like it was no big deal. Yeah, I can tell. That must have hurted like a bitch. Once again, you've said I'm some human as the culprit, as if it were nothing. You truly are gabbling on about things you would never say on the game board in a million years. But it is valid. Verbal assault tickles me. Such pleasure. It is not pain, it's pleasure. When Beato howled, the wedge that had pierced her was blasted away, but the wound remained and continued tormenting her with intense pain. You're ready? I'll keep going.
第2のゲーム
The
の
blue
最後の
truth
殺人
given to the final
夏
murder
代
in
馬
the
さんの部
second
屋で死ん
game.
だ3人についての
The
青き真
three
実
who
は
died in Natsu's
18人目の
room
X を
should
否定さ
still
れても
be
有
valid
効のは
even
ず
with the 18th person X
赤
denied.
で反論はあ
Do
る
you have a
か
counter argument for that in red?
なければ
If not,
第2の
the
ゲーム
second
も俺
game
のも
is
の
all
だ
mine too.
ああナイス
No,
こ
nothing.
のようなさまつ
It
で
would be
戦うの
no
もつま
fun
らない
at all to fight over such trivial
く
matters.
れてやる
You may have it.
第2のゲ
You
ーム
may have
貴
the
様に
second
くれて
game.
やるわ
The instant she admitted defeat in the second game, this time two blue stakes gouged through Beato's chest. The witch's lungs were gouged and her intestines. The witch's face twisted in anguish. Her body twisted as she gasped in pain.
痛えのか
Does it hurt?
痛い
Hurt?
いやいや
No, no, this just tickles
全身を
compared to having your entire body torn to bits and turned into a pile of scrap meat like your sister, that is.
お前もクズに
I'll
クズ
make you scrap meat too. Then you two siblings can mix together like ground beef and pork.
ぶち殺してやる
Beat you to death.
お前も同じ
I'll tear you to bits the same way.
次だ
Next,
第
the
3の
third
ゲー
game.
ムいつまでへ
Come
ばって
on.
やがれ
Where's all your energy?
目を地獄に叩
This
き
is
落と
where
して
I
やるの
knock
は
you the hell
これから
down.
だ
No, where I knock you down to hell.
無論よ
Naturally, as if I could let this wear me down.
そうと
Yes, it is
まだ
far
まだこ
from
れからよ
over.
さあ第3のゲームを始めよう
Let us begin the third game,
まずは最初の6連
starting with
結
the
の連
first
鎖密
6
室
linked locked rooms.
本来ならこの密室
You
はそなたが
penetrated
当
this
時
locked
カンパ
room
ス
at one time, and by all rights it should have remained that way. But then you went off and killed off Kinzo. At the time, I hypothesized that Gramps was the culprit, and that after killing the other 5 and stringing the keys across each room, he constructed his own locked room in the boiler room, where in the middle of carrying out some kind of scheme, he had an accident which resulted in him in burning to death in the boiler. But now I've gone and declared that Gramps was already dead. So I've denied my own theory. The irony, however,
問題ない
there's no
ジ
problem.
ジイ以外にも
There are plenty of people who have committed the crime besides
親
Gramps.
族会議中だった
You
大
could
人たち
have
が
even claimed that the adults who were in the middle of a family conference at the time were all in on it and committed the crime together.
マスターキー5本は
All
すべ
5
て
keys were discovered, each in the pockets of one of the servants.
個別の鍵は
The
死体の
individual
傍らの
room
封
keys
筒の
were
中
found inside envelopes alongside the
つ
corpses.
まり
In
連鎖
short,
密室に関わ
in
る
short,
全ての
all
鍵
keys are
連鎖密
related
室
to
内
the
に閉
linked
じ込めら
locked
れていたわ
rooms
け
were locked inside the linked locked
ド
rooms.
アの隙間だの窓の隙間だの通気
No
口だ
key
の
could have been
そんな
returned
ところ
from
を
the
使って密
outside
室
the
外か
room
ら
out
鍵を戻
using
す
a
ことな
crack
ど
in
で
a
きる
door,
ぞ
a crack in a window, or a vent or any place of the sort.
なら
Then
毒ガスで
they were
殺したんだ
killed with poison
鍵は
gas.
通らなくても
Even if a
ガスなら
key
通る
couldn't
ぜ
pass through, gas could,
密
right?
室の外
The
から
murder was
殺人を
carrying
実
out
行したん
from
だ
outside the locked room.
彼ら全員には
All
致
of
命傷
them
とな
had
った
fatal
銃
wounds
創
that
と思わし
appeared
き
to be
傷跡があっ
gunshot
た
wounds.
室外からの殺害
Murdering
は
them
不可
from
能だ
outside the room would have been impossible.
さらに赤を
I
重ね
shall
よう
say more with the red.
金蔵を除く
When
5
the
人の殺
5
人の
other
際
than Kinzo were
殺人者は
killed,
必
the
ず
killer
同
was
室している
always in the same room as them.
自殺者がいないことを
I've already declared
当時
in
に
Rand
赤
at
で
the
宣
time
言済
that
みだ
there were no
犯
suicides.
人は全員をそれぞ
After
れ
the
の部屋で
murder of
殺害
each
後
person in the
連鎖密室
respective
を構築
rooms,
した
the culprit constructed a linked locked
しかし
room. But there was
最後の
no
部屋の
way
鍵
for
だ
the
けは
culprit to
どう
return
しても
the
密
key
室
to the
内に
last
戻せない
room for the last room to the inside of the locked
だ
room.
が
But they did
戻
manage
すこ
to
とはで
return.
きたぜ死体の
The
第一発
first
見者
person
が
to discover a
鍵を見つけ
corpse
た
just
ふりを
had
して
to pretend
誰
to
かの死
find
体
the
のポ
key
ケットから
and
取
pull
り
it
出し
from
て
the
見せれ
corpse
ばいい
pocket.
からだ
she couldn't fully block that blue stick's retort. Pushed back by the blue wedges unleashed one after another, Beato finally failed to block one, and once again took a severe wound. Questo è stato molto furbo da parte di Butler, non ci avevo pensato. Effettivamente ha senso, se l'assassino è tra i sopravvissuti non serve che chiude l'ultima, basta che quando arrivano mette la chiave. As she howled in pain, she pulled out the blue wedge that had pierced her right arm. Beato's entire body had been slashed and pierced with blue wedges, stakes and blades over and over again, and by now her whole body was covered in blood. But even so, Beato grinned, cackled as though she was enjoying it. How could a man who promised to come home to Angel with her parents think of a theory where those parents are the culprit? Fine by me, fine, just fine by me, you know? You can be a big, happy family getting their hands dirty with mass murder and return to Angel stained with the blood that will never come out. Isn't that perfectly fitting for the survivor of this witch's island? Just like the mincemeat angel. I'll kill you. I'll tear you apart. Don't worry about begging for your life. I'll make sure you get the worst kind of death by my very own hands. Yes, you're capable of it, I'm sure. I trust you to give me an end fitting for a witch who explored the depths of cruelty over 1,000 years. Oh, will it hurt? Will it be hard to bear, or will it just tickle? Is this supposed to torment me? Come on, Ushiromiya Butler! There are still mysteries left. Beato had already countered my first powerful move, the 18th person X, by making the number of people on the island 17. But just limiting the number of people to 17 doesn't overturn the theory that Aunt Eva is the culprit. I can crush most of the murders in the third cave with that theory. Blood was dripping down all over the body of the Golden Witch. I was cornering her, and this time completely without mercy. This isn't a game played only to determine a winner and a loser. Yeah, we're not playing around here. Even just playing and fighting like this here delays my trip home. In her isolation, Angel will continue to have her heart torn apart by loneliness and sadness. I have to go back to Angel as fast as I can. Sure, yes. Are you at death's door? This is still far from affecting me. Something like this? It merely tickles. Guess I don't need to show you any mercy. You were never going to in the first place. I'm going all out. I suggest you do. When our roles were reversed, I showed you no mercy. So you should do the same given the chance. Otherwise, I'll call another isolated angel from a different world, and this time I'll tear off her arms and legs, stick her in a spear and roast her, okay? Never again. Not my family, nor my relatives, nor any of the servants. Never again will you make any of them your toys. I've already broken through all of the mystery in the fourth game with the blue proof. Only one left in the very last one. The only one left is the very last of one from the third game. Only the murder of Nocturnanjo. Have I already been cornered so far? I am in a precarious state, aren't I? She coughed violently, spitting up blood. Her insides had been punched through so many times, it was only natural.
ということ
Which means that the mystery of Dr. Nanjo's murder is the last line of defense for you being a witch, right? It seems so. If this is broken, it will mean that all of my mysteries have been broken. Unless I counter one of your truth with some new red truth, or present a new mystery, I will die.
追い詰められて空前の
You don't look like someone who's been backed to the edge of a
まだ
cliff.
何か隠
You
した
still
ま
have
ま
some
持ってい
kind
る
of hidden pitch up your sleeve, right? Well, I don't know about that. I've already tired of a life too long after 1,000 years. I've started to think that it might not be so bad to have this life ended by a worthy adversary like you, who I met at the very end of it all. You can do it, I hope.
そなたならやれるよな。やってくれ
Do it.
た
Come on.
殺してくれよ。殺してばっか
I'm
り
always the one killing, and I've never had the experience of being killed.
お前ら
I've killed 18 of you hundreds of times, but I've never been killed myself even once.
一回く
I
ら
wanna
いは
experience it at least
経
one
験してみ
myself.
てんだよ。
It was a graceless show of bravado, unchanged from before, but blood dripped from her mouth. Her once beautiful dress was covered with holes, and blood poured from all over her body, making her physical appearance look very different from her attitude. Perhaps she was still suffering from the shot she's taken to the flank. The way she was unconsciously clutching it lacked any trace of elegance, but there was no room for compassion. As long as I feel sympathy for this witch, my family and I won't be released from this place. Until I defeat her, we won't be able to go home. In this world where we live in, even people who see each other as enemies can come to understand each other if the situation changes. But absolutely evil does exist. This is an evil which brings misfortune by its very existence, and it is to be spared no compromise. Just by continuing to exist, it is evil.
お前を哀れには
I do
思わ
not
ない
feel sorry for you.
お前が
That's like you didn't feel sorry for
俺
any
たち
of
の誰に
us.
も哀れまなかったようき
そう
Well, of
お
course.
前ら
All of you are just pieces in the
駒
game.
だぜ毎回
It's just unbelievably fun to think about which six to kill in the beginning, how to kill the next two, and whether I can find a much more grotesque way of killing, you see?
最高に楽しいぜなあ
Come
バ
on,
トラー
Butler. I'll reform a little, so forgive me this time
許して
too.
くれよそした
And
ら
then I'll change the method of killing into something a little better,
変えてや
alright?
るからよ誰
I'll listen to how you want them to be killed and in what order,
お前の
alright?
希望も聞いてやるからよ楽し
It's
い
so
ぜ
much fun toying with
人の
people's
命をもてあそぶ
lives.
ってのはよお前なら
I'm
考
sure
え
you can think of a way to turn ENG into a pile of scrap meat much more.
来い
Come, Butler.
南條
Try to expose the truth of Nanjo's murder. 18th person X was destroyed, but I won't give in. I'll stop the witch breathing cold. In the end of the third game, it was declared in red that the 4 survivors at that point in time, Butler, Eva, Jessica and Nanjo, were all unrelated to Nanjo's murder. And it was also declared that he was murdered directly, right before his eyes. All other people had the strongest alibi of having their deaths declared in red, Without using the 18th person X, I have to break through this. Think. Don't stop thinking. Her red doesn't only bind me. It's supposed to be... Her red doesn't only bind me. It's supposed to be her weak point. I've got somehow to use it against her. That's right. There's still a gap. Yeah, this way I can break through it. Beatrice's legend of the witch is over. True. The others probably were dead. However, the time at which their deaths were declared in red was not the instant Dr. Nanjo died. Strictly speaking, it was in the fight between me and Eva after Dr. Nanjo's corpse was found. In other words, if someone who was alive at the time that Dr. Nanjo was killed died before Eva could proclaim their deaths, you can see right through that crack. In other words, it's like this. The culprit was among those people who were not confirmed dead prior to Eva's declaration of the deaths, and that person had managed to skillfully play dead in the beginning and waited for us to leave them alone. They made us think that they had died, while their death still hadn't been declared in red. Then they killed Dr. Nanjo, and after that, they died for some reason. After that, Eva declared their death in red. That theory can explain Dr. Nanjo's murder. How's that, Beatrice? When he forcefully asked that question, there was a terrible sound that could only be linked to that of a compressor, of a blue stake as thick as a log, appeared from under the earth and skewered the golden witch Beato, pulling her up into the air. Ugly tearing sounds rang out one after another, and each time a blue stake or wedge appeared and impaled Beatrice's body. When that finally ended, a tragic form was exposed there, pincushioned by more than 10 stakes and wedges all over her body and dripped with blood, dangling and crucified. There was none of the dignity of the brutal witch who had sneered at the honor of the dead, and toyed with and killed hundreds of the living. In the rain, which had started falling at some point, quickly tormented the crucified witch. As Butler heaved with his breathing, he waited for some kind of answer from the Golden Witch. Although it wasn't long, it took the witch at least a bit of time before she showed any signs of life. You've got what you deserved. You apportioned the pain all of those you've murdered. Even as he said that, it seemed Butler had lost a little of his forcefulness at this extremely pitiful sight. He couldn't help but avert his eyes from a woman exposed in such a brutal fashion, even if she was his enemy. But even so, unless he destroyed Beatrice, the battle wouldn't end.
Butler,
Beg of you. Beato let out a sob. It hurts. It really hurts. End it. And even now, I still can't die. So goddamn much. Asking me to do? End it. Release me from this pain. Beato's expression was a soggy mess of blood and tears. But certainly Butler had been tricked by her at one point, so he could have probably have suspected her expression and even her tears of being an act. However, Butler believed those tears. After all, those tears had the red truth mixed in with them. What do I do? What do I do?
どうすりゃいい
What do I have to
ど
do
うすれば
to end your pain?
お前の痛みを終わらせられる
I'm going to
今から
lay everything
すべてを
bare.
晒す
It will be
それが
my heart.
笑わぬ心臓
心臓
Your heart. Kill me.
ベアト
Beato.
殺して
Kill me. Just
もう
Just let me die. Were those tears of pain and torment, or else? Either way, that pitiful expression was painful for Butler to look at, even after burning with such anger.
早く
Quickly, go back
天神のところに
to Angel.
帰って
帰るためじゃない
Not so that I can it's not so that I can
お
go
前
back.
の痛みを止めるた
I
めに
grant your request in order to stop your
お
pain.
前の願いを聞く
ありがとうバトラー
With her last breaths, Beato summed up all of her remaining strength and managed to close both of her hands into fists. A red light began to gather at those fists. Then she lifted her arms as though wishing for something from heaven. You can kill me.
殺せるから
Everything
死ぬ
I am,
すべて
my heart.
心臓潰して
Crush it,
貫
pierce it. Okay. The red light around both her arms got stronger and stronger.
おね
She got that far into the word, and her face tilted to the side a bit. Her right arm lost its light and flopped down. But her left arm alone did not lose its light and remained held up towards the heavens. Then, before Butler's eyes, another Beato appeared with a faint form, transparent like a curtain. The crucified Beato had already lost consciousness. However, the newly appeared faint Beato quietly looked at me, her eyes expressionless, and spoke in an uncharacteristically polite tone.
後ろ宮バト
Ushiromiya Butler,
今から私
I will now kill
があ
you.
なたを殺します
それで
And
そしてたった
and
今
right
こ
now,
の島にはあなた以外
there is no one
誰もいま
other
せ
than
ん
you,
この島で
on
生
this
きているの
island.
は
The only one
あなただ
alive
けです
on this
島の
island
外の
is
存
you.
在は
Nothing
一切
outside
干
the
渉でき
island
ません
can interfere. I understood. This was the only thing left keeping Beatrice a witch, the final mystery, and Beato was holding it out to me, entreating me to solve her final mystery and kill her.
来いよ
Come on,
お前の最後の謎
I'll accept Your final mistake.
俺が受け取ってやる。
この島
You are
にあな
all
たはた
alone
った一
on this
人。そして
island.
もちろん
And of course, I am
私
not
はあな
you.
たではない。なのに私
Yet
は今
I am
ここにい
here
て
now and am
これ
about
か
to
らあな
kill
た
you.
を殺します。
南條先生殺しの謎の
Like a
今日
souped up version of the mystery of Dr. Nanjo's murder.
それだ。
So,
私は
who
誰？
am I?
それがお前の最後の出題な
The
の。
final question.
私は誰？
Am I? Then Beatrice slowly approached me and held me expressionless. Yes, I get it, Beat. I'll kill you. Slowly too I hold her head, and then my piece left the game board. Ushiromi Butler died on the 10th twilight. Ushiromi Angel died in 1998. Ushiromi Maria died in the 10th night. Trattati. Quelli sappiamo tutti.
足も差し出せるわだからどうか願いを叶えてあなたが探してた春はここよそんなとこにはないのたどり着けない永遠に戻ることなどできないの後ろの道は消えてしまった出会うはずの二人導いて例えば始まりの時であっても禁断の館では全て愛してみせるから仕組まれた罠だともあざけり笑ってみせるんだ悲しみの記憶すらあなたを責める道具にして一度だけささやくようにスコ雨は止まずにあなたを連れて週末の楽園を目指す始まりはそこから
No, allora Andrew, capisco cosa dici, sono stato colpevole anche io di queste cose e cercherò di non farlo più in futuro. Fourth game, Alliance of the Golden Witch. Non sappiamo la risposta di Butler rispetto a questo ultimo come si dice quesito, il cuore di Beatrice. Unknown, fragment, tanti numeri. Scattered over the big bed were cute jelly beans of various colors and chocolate coins. A fork was stuck into the shortcake peeking out of a gift box, and there were decanters with drinks and of various colors lined up on the side table. But the venomous color of the drink poured into the glass matched none of the decanters. Someone had probably been playing around mixing them together. The taste aside, that was a lot of fun. No, the taste aside, that was a lot of fun to do. On top of the fluffy bed were several colorful big pillows stuffed with dreams. On the big bed that looked like something out of a child's dream world, Ben Castle lay face down, and Lambda Delta lay face up, hugging a pillow and relaxing. This one was a real rush, wasn't it? I got really anxious when Beato said she stopped the game.
これだけのゲームを
What a
始めて
rude
おいて
witch to start a game of this scale and trying to end it by
失礼
throwing
な
it
魔女よ
away.
ね
Wasn't Enge a good piece? After Beato ran for it, Enge dragged her back and made her resume the game. It's too bad that she gave Butler a bit too much enthusiasm though,
バトラーは情に弱
because
いっ
she
て分
knew
かって
Butler is weak against emotions.
確かに
No
あい
kidding.
つ
He looks like he might even go easy on his enemy,
雰囲
Beato.
気があったわね
前回の流れから
Based on the previous
下手する
game,
と
it
ベアト
wasn't
に同
easy
情
that
し
he
て
might start to feel
おかしな方
compassion
向
for
にゲームを
Beato
流すかも
and
しれ
take
な
the
い
game in an odd
危惧してた
direction.
のエンジェは
Anger was a
バト
trump
ラーがゴ
card
ー
to
ル
get
を誤解した
Butlers
時
back
に
on track
再誘導する
if
ため
and
の
when
切り
he
札
mistook his goal.
本当はもっとサポ
In
ートさ
truth,
せ
I wanted to have her
それから
support
切
him
りた
a
かった
bit
んだ
more before playing around.
いきなり切らされた
She really did play and discard herself straight away.
仕込みに随分か
What
かっ
a
て
waste
困
for
る
a piece that required
Mottainai.
so much preparation.
例の名乗
I'm
っちゃ
so
ダメルー
glad
ル
I shackled her with the rule about not giving her name.
あれを設けなかっ
If
たら
I hadn't
兄
set
弟
that
タッ
up,
グ大
the
活躍で
brother-sister tag team would have swallowed Beato up and won in a blink of an eye.
一気に畳みかけ
I
るチャン
thought
ス
it
か
was
と
my
思ったんだ
chance
け
to
ど
apply a lot of pressure
あん
at
た
once.
のマークがき
But you were watching her so
うまくいかせ
closely
なかった
that I couldn't make the best use of her.
ああもったい
Ah,
ない
what a
こ
waste
ま
that piece, what a waste that piece was.
当然でしょ
Well, yeah,
あんなずる
that
い
piece
駒
was super
とっとと
OP
リタイアしてく
and
れ
I
ないと
needed
困
her
る
out
わ
of there. Like yesterday. Well,
結果
in
的
the end,
に
she
ゲ
did a
ーム
good
中断
job
を
in
阻止する
preventing the
活
game
躍を
from
してく
being
れたし
suspended, I guess.
それは私に
That
とって
helps me
も
out
助かる
too.
ことだった互いの利害
Her
が一致
actions
する
ended
活
up
躍をしてく
matching
れ
both
た
of our
と
interests.
いう意味に
So
おい
in
ては
that sense, she
本当に
was
素晴ら
really
し
a
い駒だった
wonderful
わよ
piece.
バトラと同じで単
She
純な子
was
だっ
an
た
innocent child,
簡
kid,
単に
like
私の言いな
Butler.
りになってく
So
れた
it
の
was easy to get her to do as I said.
駒にするなら
An idiot
バカ
or
か
an
直情
impulsive
型よ
type.
ね
One of those two is always the best for a piece.
ああ本当に惜しい駒だった
That piece really could have been so much more.
その子も今じゃ
And
ひき
now
肉
she means me.
ね
Hey,
後で
let's
一緒に
make
それで
hamburgers
ハンバー
out
グ
of
作り
her
ましょう
later
よ
on. Oh
餃子の
wait,
方が好
didn't
きだ
you
っ
like
て
gyoza more?
妹味っ
I
てど
wonder
んな
what
味
little
かし
sister
ら
tastes like. Tastes like
笑える
funny.
あんたそんな
Is
余
it
裕
really
でいいの
alright for you to be so
エ
relaxed?
ンジェのおかげで
Butler got fired up thanks to Angel.
ベアトをもう
He
一度し
started
始
going
め
after Beato like a
今やだい
madman.
ぶ私の
And
有利
now,
なゲーム
the
展
game
開
is
だと
taking
思
a
う
big turn to my advantage, I'd say.
というかバトラ
In fact, didn't
今
Butler
回で
just
こ
solve
れまでのほ
almost
とん
all
ど
of
の
the
謎を解い
mysteries
ちゃっ
so
たんじゃ
far?
ない
はあ
Huh?
とんでもない
Not even close!
バトラの青き真
Almost
実なんて
all of
ほ
Butler's
とんど
blue
外れてる
truth
わ
is
よ
wrong.
ベアトのぬるい赤
Beato
なんて隙間
wishy-washy
だらけだ
red
も
is
の
full of
多
holes.
少は知恵の回る
Anyone
子
with
だった
half a
ら
brain
適
could
当に
slip
へりくつ
through it
並べりゃ
easily
簡
just
単
by
にすり抜け
rattling
られるわ
off some random BS.
ああ本
Ah,
当に
that
イラ
really
イラした
ticked
わ
me
よ
off.
私だったら
If it had
どれ
been
も
me,
徹
I'd
底
have
的
made
に
sure
赤
to
で繰
cut
り返して
down
るわ
every one of those things with red.
あらそうだったの
Really?
私はてっきり
I was under the
あれらが
impression
正解
that
だと思っ
those
てた
were
わ
all correct answers.
小型爆弾
Well,
を
of
飲み込ま
course,
せ
I
て
didn't
うんぬ
have
ん
the
は
suspicion
さ
about
す
the
がに
stuff
どう
to
か
do
と
with
思ったけど
swallowing small bombs.
バトラの青き
And
真
Butler's
実
blue
だって
truth,
全部
not
が有
all
効
of
になっ
them
ては
were
いない
even
か
valid.
ベアトは第一の
Beato
ゲームに
started
おいて
stated
身元不明
clearly
死体に
that
ついてその身元
Beato
を全て
stated
保
clearly
証
that
する
in the first
とはっ
game
きり
she
明言している
guarantees the identity of all unidentified
こ
corpses.
れによりバトラの
That breaks
エヴァ
Butler's reasoning
秀吉の
about the
密室
culprit
殺
of
人の
Eva
犯
and
人は
Hideyoshi locked to
偽装
murder
死体を演
being
じた何
someone
者
who used a fake
という
corpse.
推理は破られてるのよ次に
Next, He said that Kanon's death in the boiler room was probably an accident, but what kind of accident could end up with him driving a stake into his own chest? How dumb is that? I sliced it with the red thread. I sliced it with that red treasure sword or whatever. Kanon did not die in an accident. For the next one, the murders of the three, including Genji in the parlor, he thought that it was a simultaneous murder where they all shoot each other in a clockwise pattern at the same time. It's laughable. Genji, Kumasawa, and Nanjo were not killers. The final trap X for Natsui's murder is really dumb too. The thing that shot Natsui wasn't a trap. It was a real shooting murder with a gun raised and trigger pulled. My condolences. Stop that. You mustn't say something like that in there. That kid's trying to make it so that she killed Natsui by bouncing Natsui's bullet back at her with magic. Oopsie! Right, you're right, I forgot. Even his blue troops from the second game were too naive. When the six were murdered in the chapel, the culprit was inside the chapel. That guy tries to explain every little thing with Trap X. What the heck is that Trap X? Some new mystery novel cliché? At the incident where Nanjo and Kumasawa were killed in the servant room, it's ludicrous to say that someone inherited Kanon's name. The only one who can go by the name of Kanon is the person himself. No other human can adopt that name. And that theory about borrowing the master key from Rosa for Natsui's room is also worthless. After the master keys came into Rosa's control, never did any of them leave her hands. Except for the time when she lent one to Butler to unlock Natsui's room. I could go on, but this is enough just for a quick look, I guess. Quick look. You've just denied Butler's blue truth for the first and second game across the board. My, what a thing. Butler would faint if he would hear that. If he had heard that. See? Beato wasn't cornered at all. I always thought she was a pretty good actress. I'm sure the plan is to make it look like she got cornered this game. And then sometime next game, switch! She slices it half with a single red stroke and make Butler's eyes pop out. And then I'm sure she'll say it with a huge grin on her face. A witch is never in trouble. Then the whole tragic feeling as though Beato was getting cornered was all an act. Obviously, she really is a great actress, even though she wasn't cornered at all. It felt like a last episode climax to put everyone else to shame. She's totally the winner for Best Supporting Actress this year. Oh, but of course I'm the star. Or it could be you, then. At the end, she said things like, kill me, and laid out a big riddle. Wasn't that her last stand? With Beato to be finished for good if that riddle was solved. No way! You were tricked too, man. That wasn't even close to a last stand. Beato still has some hellishly brutal moves she's keeping hidden. When she stuck out both arms to give that final riddle, didn't you notice how she brought her right arm back down? Oh, now that you mention it, so that's what that meant. Sure is. She still has plenty of little moves left, and none of the mystery has ever been solved. That tension as though she'd been completely seen through it. and was like, tune in the next time for the final episode. She truly is genius at acting. Ah, can't wait to see her knock Battler down I can't wait to see her knock Battler back down to rock bottom. She's really taken to that North Wind and the Sun strategy from the last game, I think. I bet Butler will sympathize with Butler again and fall for it completely. A woman's single tear can trick a man after all. Now, that's value, don't you think? I wonder if Butler will get caught by that move again. I must do my part too, and light a fire under Butler to never feel sympathy for her again. Although Angie's mincemeat seemed to have done that well for the time being. A power-up from Angie-flavored hamburgers? Of course, I won't be beaten either. I'll be giving Beato my full support so that she can make enough of a comeback to compete with Butler. I won't lose, Beato. She won't lose, Beato. I mean, I've threatened her with a wonderful penalty if she does. Your penalties are genuinely no joke, so you should go a little easy. I decided what to do next time I get to give you a penalty, Bear. Wanna hear? No. Oh, come on, listen. Okay, here we go. I'll lock you in a wonderful castle. That castle will be surrounded by a pure crystal walls, 12 kilometers to a side, with a height of 10 meters. No magic and no cheating allowed. That's really not something you can jump over, right? 1,440,000,000 meters squared. You can stop there. I already know what you're going to say. And that place will start getting buried with gems, one every day. And unlock you in it until the castle walls are packed with them. You've been buried to death with gems. Isn't that a wonderful romantic penalty? Unless you multiply the length of the walls by 5 if you make the height 1/10 of its current height. And you can even shut me in right now. Really? Wouldn't that make it 3,600,000,000 meters squared, you know? That penalty would take more than twice as long. Oh, you'll be my prisoner for such a long time. I love you, Bear. I really love you. Lambda Delta playfully clung to Ben Castle, who yawned, looked bored, and as she stroked Lambda Delta under the chin as though playing with a cat. So, you're betting on Butler to win. And I'm betting on the two of them getting draws forever. Isn't anyone going to beat Beato? Isn't anyone going to bet on Beato to win? It won't be me. Her chances of winning are 0. You must hurt to be told by the Witch of Miracles that there's 0 chance of a miracle. I wouldn't bet on her either, of course. For certain. You must hurt to be told by the Witch of Certainty that you're certainly not good as well, no good as well. Unusually for them, they giggle together. I wonder what kind of conclusion this game's gonna have. At least we can now that at least we can predict. That's why it's fun, after all. I won't allow any more escaping or suspending the game. I'll make them continue the game for certain, and I won't let them run away. I can't even imagine how things are going to unfold now. But I do know one way it's certainly not going to end. At the very least, no, it won't end with Beato's victory. I mean, think about it. Neither you nor I are betting on Beato to come out the winner. Which means, if it looks like Beato is gonna win, she'll be making enemies of both of us great witches. Pretty much. Our powers are most in balance only when things are somewhere between a draw and battler's advantage. If it tips too much in Beato's favor, both of us will align along the same vector and drag Beato back. So the instant Beato finds herself on top, she'll have both of us as enemies to deal with. A common front with Bern sounds fun. Thanks. But now I'm not taking a Compay candy bath with you. Aww, but I thought we could take a Compay shower together. While I cover you all with melted marshmallows. Poor girl. She's a living toy, a doll that you cut so that you could play with me. I'm good at playing with dolls. I really can play with them well, you know. I'm proud of being able to get hundreds of years of playtime out of a single toy without getting tired of it. You're an ally at sometimes, an opposer at others, toying with her forever. I feel sorry for her. That kid is our doll now. That's right, that kid is our doll. No end is prepared for her except the ones the two of us wish for. So I can say for sure that this can only end with either an eternal draw because of me, or Beato being defeated and destroyed because of you. As far as this game ending with Beato's victory goes, I will proclaim it as Witch of Miracles. And then I'll proclaim it as Witch of Certainty. Beato certainly cannot win, and there will be absolutely no miracles. Madonna! Madonna! Abbiamo finito. La prima parte. Question arc completato. Le domande sono state poste. Alcune risposte sono state tentate da parte di Butler. Beatrice le ha accettate o comunque non le ha controbattute. Lambda Delta le ha distrutte. Ha toccato solo i primi due giochi però. Quindi i primi due giochi sono completamente ancora avvolti nel mistero. Abbiamo un sacco di nuova, ma un sacco di nuova Red Truth. Finalmente abbiamo la Red Truth anche per il primo episodio, cosa che non avevamo mai avuto. Allora, good morning. As the story crosses into the second half, the tales woven by the Golden Witch have been exhausted. All that remains now is to understand them. Perhaps a new game master can offer a fresh perspective. Che spavento, mi sono cacato. Eccolo qua. Non è più Rondò of Witches and Reasoning, è Nocturne of Truth and Illusions. Preparatevi alla risata un secondo. Intanto qua c'è scritto: There is much to be learned by revisiting old games. What can you discover by examining old positions with new insight? Once you understand your opponent, try flipping over the chessboard. Ok, allora, bene. È separato, va bene. Volevo vedere qui characters di episodio 4. Possiamo vedere Butler morto? Missing, eccolo qua. Missing. Bound for hell in the witch's embrace. But to the witch, the hell is the golden land. Oh! Siester 556. A weapon of the Sisters' Cavalry, which serves Pendragon. Although 556 was a quiet girl who was always being teased, she was loved by everybody. However, luck was not on her side and she suffered a brutal death in a battle with the Black Witch. She was a state-of-the-art weapon and added color to the Sisters' Cavalry, which had the strong flavor of an honor guard. 556 was in charge of a squad fire support. She shot not to kill but to protect her allies. Eccola qua. 556, quiet girl who is always being teased by everyone, but that is because they all love her very much. The trumpet is her specialty. Everyone skips to her lively tone. Allora, Maria Sorcière. A witches' alliance formed by Lady Maria, the Witch of Origins, and Lady Beatrice, the Endless Witch. The two of them created a groundbreaking new system of magic, thereby granting Beatrice, whose magical power had beginning to decline, immense new magical power. You could probably say that it was through the formation of this alliance that Beatrice gained the endless power in the true sense. Article 1 requires members to accept each other as witches and respect each other's magic. At one point, young ENG was invited into the alliance, but she was later excommunicated. System of magic. A foundation upon which to create magic. In particular, it refers to a system by whose shared usage magic power can be gained without conscious effort. You could say that writing down their own system of magic and leaving it to future generations is one of a witch's life works. However, systems of terrific magical power are correspondingly difficult to comprehend, and shared usage of them is troublesome. As a result, none will appear to bear the burden. If a system's magical power is simple, there will be likely no difficulty sharing it, but as a result, the system will be reduced to having no greater effect than a simply good luck charm, and will ultimately be forgotten. Leaving a system of magic for later generation while simultaneously maintaining that balance is the true joy of witchcraft. Grimoire. In short, a grimoire is that in which a system of magic is written down and transmitted to later generations. The most famous grimoire in the world today has a 2,000-year-old history and is still in circulation, and is said to be continuing to acquire new alliance members even now. It is forbidden to speak the true name of that grimoire, and is simply called the book. Beatrice's titles. As a witch, Beatrice holds the two titles of Endless and Golden. Because these are originally titles from separate systems of magic, it can be said that she possesses two systems. The Endless Witch has its foundation in the endless creation, and is the root of her unmatched endless magical power. The Golden Witch has its foundation in the magic realization, and her magical power to make the precious metal of fantasy manifest in reality gives the miracle of manifestation to all faint forms of magic. The two of these were polished even further through Mariage Sorcière, elevating them to a system of magic called Endless Realization. In that sense, she should now be called neither the Endless nor the Golden Witch, but by a new title that is a fusion of the two. Regarding witches, the definition of a witch is vague, but the most accepted theory is that one is a witch at the point where they gain a power surpassing humans and are able to use it freely, and the world of possibly fragment in which that can be used, and the world or possibly fragment in which they can be freely used is that called mamma mia. And the world, or possibly fragment, in which that can be freely used is called their territory. Most witches cannot leave their territory, but those who are capable of transcending its boundaries at will and wandering the fragments are called voyagers. In the story, Bercastel and Lambda Delta fall under that type. Regarding voyagers, worlds of different fates and circumstances are called fragments, and witches who are able to cross the ocean of endless fragments are called voyagers. It is also another name for a high-order, high-level witch, and witches who are unable to leave their territory. It is also another name for a high-order witch, and witches who are unable to leave their territory. Porca puttana, adesso ho capito, scusate. It is also another name for a high-order, high-level witch, and witches who are unable to leave their territory cannot compare with that power. However, perhaps because they do not have specific territories, their personal values are unstable and it is easy for their soul to become faint. As a result, it is not rare for voyagers to disappear like scraps of seaweed in the ocean of fragments. Their voyage has no endpoint, and perhaps you could even say that it is a journey to escape an endpoint. Witches of the highest orders, witches of a higher order than voyagers are called creators. Regarding creators are sacred beings who can create one out of a sea of nothingness. They can give birth to one from zero and give birth to the endless and then return it to zero again in a flash. They are freed from all restrictions, and the voyagers sometimes even call them gods. In that sense, perhaps the Witch of Origins Maria, who is promised to become a creator, may be called a chosen one. Voyagers fear that the end of their own journey is to become a creator. As to why they will be frightened of evolving into a higher order being, none can understand except they themselves. E qui abbiamo tutto. Adesso preparatevi di nuovo al jumpscare Beatrice. Abbiamo gli altri titoli che non sono sbloccati, ma voglio concludere leggendo questo. Episode 5, End of the Golden Witch. Good morning, please enjoy the new game with its new game master. I say that, but the game has already reached its climax. The culprit has been cornered and merely awaits checkmate. I'm sure there will be something you can spot from this clearer perspective. The difficulty is fairly easy. What could possibly fool you now?